Okay, we are on. I think this is working. Let's make sure.
The NABJ conventions, either as presidents or as presidential candidates in past years. NABJ is currently in conversation with Vice President Kamala Harris's team to schedule a Q&A either in person or virtually in September. As journalists, we use opportunities like these both to inform our reporting, but also to help voters understand the choices that they face in a consequential and historic election year. NABJ has partnered with PolitiFact to fact-check this conversation in real time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's why this went very off the rails.
Yeah. I didn't realize they were doing that. So they're partnering with who? Politico or?
PolitiFact.
PolitiFact. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
You can access that feed on social media using the hashtag NABJFactCheck. Again, the hashtag is NABJFactCheck. We have a lot to get to, and we do not want to waste any time, so let's bring out the former President of the United States, the Republican nominee for president, former President Donald Trump.
Oh my God. That music just doesn't fit him at all. That music just doesn't fit him at all.
Right?
That's funny.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know who picked it or if on Trump's team approved it or what, but yeah, that's already not a great start.
No, sure. I know, but it's funny. He doesn't look happy.
Hi, Mr. Trump. Rachel Scott, BBC. Thank you.
How are you? How are you?
Oh my God. He's got to be just so insufferable to be around.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people...
Him?
Right. Oh, yeah.
All right. Sorry.
People did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
No pressure.
Yeah. I mean, just, if you just want to guess how he might respond to this.
Yeah. I'm going to say deny. He'll just deny he said any of it.
Oh, that would be like a normal politician.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And
he's got supporters there. Huh?
I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money, they were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. and then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something
Mr.
was
President,
wrong.
I would love
I think
if you
it's
can
a
answer
very
the question
nasty
on your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I have
believe that
answered the
black voters should
question.
trust you with.
That's the only part I've ever seen is the Zoom thing not working or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how true that is since we're watching this after the fact.
Right. It doesn't matter.
But, right, it's like, okay, yeah, exactly. It's just like...
Didn't seem to have a problem, like, running late on the RNC. You know, he was supposed to be on stage like an hour or more ahead of time when that was going on. And everybody else, like, taking up so much time, all of a sudden we're at, like, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and he's still talking. It was supposed to have been over already.
But yeah, standard response would be, you know, from a regular politician with, you know, that normal kind of sense would be like deny and explain why it's a denial or something. But he's just like, no, I can't believe you're so mean to me.
I know.
Can you believe how mean they are to me?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Victim.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act.
And for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work, in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
Give me
a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a...
Yeah, that's what it means.
Right?
That's all it means.
It's like they're the ones throwing the term around, and now the question's being asked. It's like, oh, well, yeah, no, that's on you guys to define. Like, no, it's that. Then you're using a term you don't know what it means. Like, that seems worse.
Yeah. It just means diversity, equity, and inclusion. They know what they want it to mean. It's just an excuse to say the N-word.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they're just anyway.
Definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So, I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much.
What does that mean?
And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was...
I've known a lot of people indirectly.
Right?
For a long time. It's so silly.
I feel like he's just saying, I have heard her name thrown around, but it makes it sound more, I guess, official or something, rather than having heard about her in the same way that everyone else has.
Right. That's like living in Hollywood or whatever, and like knowing, like, you see the actor happen to go to the studio all the time. Oh, I've known them for a long time, indirectly. Yeah,
we shop at the same stores.
We shop at the same stores, sort of. Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's only the area.
We throw garbage in the same dumpster. I know.
Pure likelihood.
Yeah.
Only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is...
I think somebody should look into that, too, when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
really don't
have
know.
said?
I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there, Harris, is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length. And we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that interview.
You told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're here today. I mean, it is not lost on us how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we were divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And there is this question of, in this moment where we are, why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly?
What does that mean?
That's
Oh
literally what
my
the follow-up's about.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised you didn't pause it previously on when he was saying that Kamala has decided to become black.
Well, oh yeah, sorry.
Right?
Yeah,
I'm just like,
It's so
like when I heard that, I was like, are you seriously saying
she's
that
always
right now?
been
Like,
she's part Jamaican, right, and Indian. Isn't that her
I
heritage?
mean, that sounds right. I don't know like details on her black heritage
But
side.
as far as
So it
I
could
know,
be-
she's always
that could be
she's
right.
always identified that way. She's always
Yeah.
been, I remember back in the 2020 primary that it was always
Yeah.
included as part of her identity.
Yeah, my memory of it is back in the 2020 primary. It was like, oh yes, Kamala Harris, black woman. Did you know she also has Indian heritage? It seemed to me that it was more phrased that way, like
Yeah,
like
that's
that was the more surprising background.
yeah. That was what I remember. Anyway, so let's see what was he say. Let's see what he has to say now.
Is a black job, sir.
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is.
Okay, not yeah.
Yeah, which it's like, okay, that's a fair answer, but it also just makes your previous statement utterly meaningless.
Meaningless. Yeah, exactly.
So, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
The reality is this: he knows where he is. He's trying to make it sound like show the the black community that fear this. This is a threat to you. And he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand how racist he's probably going to get a lot worse, is my guess.
Yeah, we're only 7 minutes in.
Yeah, I know.
To the officially slated hour interview.
Oh boy.
As you can
There's
see.
anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr. President,
they're
can I-
taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people.
That's not true. It's not that many.
Well, I mean, they're undocumented, so it could be any number we want.
There are hundreds of thousands, a lot, but it's not millions.
Exactly. It's yeah. I mean, there has been some data that has been able to be used to project a likely number, but yes, I do believe his number is grossly inflated.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the black population, is affected most by that. And Kamala is allowing it to happen. She's the border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border czar like this. She's never even essentially been. She said she was there once, but not the right part of the border. So she was a border czar. She's done a horrible job. These people are coming into our country, and they're taking black jobs and Hispanic jobs, and frankly, they're taking union jobs. Unions are being very badly affected by all of the millions of people that are pouring into our country. And one thing, as we discussed, many of these people are coming in from mental institutions, from prisons, from jails. They're gang members in other countries. Other countries are setting loose their prisoners. They're opening up their prisons and their mental institutions, and they're taking their bad people, drug dealers, gang members, and they're bringing them into the United States. And by the way, their crime rate is going down, and our crime rate is going to be a disaster.
Mr. President, I want to get into how you address some of the issues with black communities. And I say that plural because we live in communities of color that are different. We're not all the same. We don't vote the same. We don't think the same.
True.
It's not monolithic. So as you come here today, I want to talk about something that bursts. And this is the weight of the inflation on this country right now. The nonprofit Money Management International recently released data from its mid-year analysis that we have found a 52% rise in people who are seeking counseling for being in credit debt. They're paying for food that is sky high on their credit cards, and now they can't pay that off. The credit counseling nonprofit MMI, as I said, is saying now that they've seen surges that they haven't seen since we were in a pandemic of people in financial trouble. Much of that falls on the shoulders of single moms, single black moms, when you look statistically.
Yeah.
How do you turn it around? What's your plan for the black community when it comes to money?
So, first of all,
It's not just affecting them, it's affecting everybody.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, but I mean, that's, yeah. Obviously, he didn't have an answer. He didn't do anything about it. And it's not to get too off topic, but I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day, like why or today earlier, like what's causing really all of this, all the problems, all the financial issues, all the, everything, because it's all kind of cascades downwards, like a domino effect, right?
Right, right.
And it really, everything, I mean, things were already kind of bad anyway, and then the pandemic happened, and a lot of people suffered during it. Some people thrived during it, and some people suffered immediately after it, because it took a while for it to really, manifest. But you could say largely that this is a problem, this is Donald Trump's fault.
Mm-hmm.
Because Donald Trump, the pandemic is partially Donald Trump's fault. Because he's the one that closed the Pandemic Readiness Agency.
Right.
When he got in office. So COVID, it might have still happened, but it probably wouldn't have been as severe had that been funded better and been a little bit more robust and able to handle. We would have had the ventilators, we would have had the masks, we would have had,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we probably would have had more of the sewage level monitoring that got implemented.
Yeah.
After the fact. Yeah.
We would have had so many other different things. Now, I mean, you can blame Trump for that but in reality, this is really a critique. It's a problem with capitalism.
Oh, for sure.
More than
Because, I mean,
anything.
even just during the pandemic, they've found like so many industries now that they're doing investigating. They're like, hey, you guys were fixing prices, and you guys were doing antitrust violations. And it's like it's very reasonable when you just think about it from a profit first mentality. You see a disaster, and you're like, oh, and everyone's cool with just saying there are supply chain issues, and we can raise prices based on that. Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course they're going to do that. Like, what reality would they not use that as an excuse until they get caught?
Right. And then the amount of money that they make, the penalty is just going to be a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, they already have their lawyers on hand that
Right.
That are going to be talking those penalties down as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Pointing out like how they're still an essential service. They're too big to fail.
Right.
Really, and too big of a penalty would of course cause them to fail. So
Right.
yeah, we need to have it be within reason. Obviously.
Mm-hmm. At least you can go.
God, it's
I
a
know.
whole thing.
It's a whole thing. Well, I mean, at least Lena Khan's going after him. They hate her.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going after a lot of the, they're breaking up a lot of the corporations. Possibly lead to breaking up, we call them a monopoly and break them up, which is a good thing. So you may not be able to penalize them, but if you break them up, I mean, that's pretty severe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I didn't fully read into it, but apparently Google just lost
Yeah.
a
Yeah, I was kind of referencing that in my head.
case there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, generally, Donald Trump, if it wasn't Donald Trump, it would have been somebody else. Donald Trump's is a product of capitalism.
Oh,
in every aspect. Him and him winning, the fact that he got into, his father having the money, having all the businesses and that failing, filing for bankruptcy, the fake university, the whole thing, it's all a product of capitalism, and him running for president. And him winning the presidency really is also a product I was watching this documentary called The Antisocial Network on Netflix. It was an interesting little dive into how a lot of modern social media got formed, but also and where Trump came from and how he won because of things like 4chan and 8chan.
Oh, was that with the something analytics talking about?
I'm not sure.
Like the name of the company? I'm blanking on the name of that company, but it was something analytics. Because as you're talking about it, it's like I'm pretty sure I saw the same thing.
Okay. So it got into Anonymous and
Cambridge Analytics? That sounds right.
maybe we got into Anonymous and how 4chans just became a bunch of people that like things from Japan and were making trolls being funny and funny stuff on the internet. And then that suddenly that turned into memes of themselves and you know and then eventually you started seeing a lot of like Nazi stuff on there and racist rhetoric, and then that turned into 8chan and so on and so forth, and it was this idea of not censoring everybody, but at the same time that was also it was a whole thing with them and the Occupy Wall Street movement and all of that stuff, but all of that stuff is a direct reaction to capitalism in the first place. So that allowed Trump to get elected down the road, and all of this just kind of one thing causes the other thing to react and causes the other thing to react and so on and so forth. And now we have this. Now here we are, and now we have social media that at least the internet stuff has kind of calmed down a little bit, but essentially people have just kind of Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff has just tamed down commercialized versions of 4chan, the forever scrolling thing.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
And people get their news from it, and then of course influences from other countries and it's just a whole thing. And getting somebody.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I like the idea of being able to use social media as a way to get news out and have a more grassroots news source. Great, but don't only do that.
Right.
You still have to get from multiple sources in order to get the full picture of what's going on.
Right. Well, that's why any source that you get through YouTube or whoever, always look for multiple sources, not just YouTube sources. Look at official sources. Look at YouTube stuff. You look at as many sources as you possibly can to verify what's going on, and don't try to form an opinion on something until you've got all the information, until you've at least heard it from at least 3 or 4 sources, and sources that you trust. And to trust the source, if they're telling you go. Don't take my word for it. Go look, at all of these other sources. I tend to trust people like that who will say that versus somebody like Trump who just asserts this is the way it is.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's right there is already a big difference between what I see as like left and right frequently on that kind of thing is both of them will say something like, don't take my word for it, do your own research. But the left side will include the links
Right.
Of what they're looking at, and the right just says, no, do your own research. Oh, I can't even bother. And has no links, and because there's nothing to link to, because they, I would say they made it up, but no, I mean, they heard it from someone else who heard from someone else down the way, and then they made it up.
Right, exactly. And it's also, and generally speaking, the vibe in this whole election has changed, especially since, I'm so glad last time we talked, they didn't have, Tim Walz wasn't picked yet.
Yeah, that's, just a few days, and just boom.
I know.
Now we're here.
And
everything, since that picking has been equally great.
I was hoping she would pick him, but I wasn't sure, I thought maybe it might be Shapiro, and I'm like, ugh, I hope not.
Yeah, that definitely seemed to be like most people's reaction on social media. It's like, anytime it seems like Democrats are doing well, they'll shoot themselves in the foot. And they were like, Shapiro would have been the shoot themselves in the foot choice.
Right, yeah.
That everyone expected to happen, historically. So, yeah, it's definitely a pleasant surprise. And like now that there's, now there's more like public information coming out about, you know, Walz and everything, because I'll admit I didn't know that much about him. I'm like, wow, yeah, no, he's a pretty awesome guy. Like, I'm down for him being vice president.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, here we go.
Yeah.
It's very hard to hear you for whatever reason because of the fact that they have bad equipment. Because I guess this woman was unable to get the right equipment.
Wow.
But it's very hard for me to hear
Eddie
you. But I can
fucking-
hear every other word. It's very difficult actually. But so I don't know if they can fix it or do something with it. But I'll do the best I can with it. The inflation is absolutely destroying our middle class, our working class, virtually every class. Inflation is a disaster in our country. Inflation is a country buster. It breaks every country. And we had, in my opinion, the worst inflation we've had. They say it's 58 years, but I think it's much more than that. It's been devastating. And if you just take a look at a lot of things they don't include, like interest rates. Interest rates went from 2.4% to 10%, and you can't get the money. People can't buy houses. They no longer have the American dream. Young people, young black people, they don't have the American dream anymore. They can't buy a house. They can't borrow the money because of the cost of the money. They can't buy it because of the cost of housing, because of the cost to build it, because of inflation. Inflation is a disaster, and it's destroying our country, and it's destroying the black community probably as much or more.
So what do you do?
Than any.
What's your plan?
You know what we have to do? We have to bring down the cost of energy, and that's going to bring down the cost of inflation. This was all started with a bad energy policy by Joe Biden. By the way, just if I might, I was running against a man named Biden. You probably saw that. And he was losing very badly in the polls, and then he had a rather bad debate. I would say it was a bad debate. I would say it was one of the worst debates in history. And his poll numbers crashed. And instead of saying, you know, let's keep going and maybe something happens the other way, they said, oh, we're going to replace him. Let's just replace him. That's like you're in a fight, a prize fighter's in a fight. He's not doing what you say, let's bring in another fighter. So our whole campaign was steered toward him, and now we have to steer toward him. But ultimately it's the same because they have bad policy. They have policies of open borders, unbelievable open borders, horrible energy policies. They want to get rid of, as you say, gasoline in cars. They want to get rid of oil. They want to get rid of efficient heating.
Mr. President.
Environmentally, what they're doing is killing our country. They're absolutely destroying our country. But the inflation is the thing that's hurting the black worker, the black population, and every other population within our country. Inflation is the worst it's been, I think, in over 100 years. And they'll fact check it. They'll say it's only 58. Whatever it may be, they don't add all the numbers. They don't add the really bad numbers, and you can check that too. But inflation, Harris, is absolutely destroying this country and the people in our country. Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
President, can I ask you another question
Yes,
that is
and-
also impacting black Americans?
And that's very clear now. Good.
I'm sorry?
It's very clear. I hear you.
Okay. So Sadia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff. The deputy has since been charged with murder. You've said police would get immunity from prosecution if you win. Why should someone like that officer have immunity, in your opinion?
Immunity?
Immunity.
I don't know the exact case, but I saw something, and it didn't look good to me. It didn't look good to me. Are you talking with the water, right?
Yeah, well, police unions are not backing this person either.
Okay.
But again, why would...
They're going to be charging the officer. I guess they're charging the officer.
So why should he receive immunity?
Well, he might not. I mean, it depends. It depends on what happens. I'm talking about people that are much different cases than that. We need people to protect ourselves. And
He has no idea.
by the way, in Chicago, as an example, a few weeks ago, July 4th weekend, they had 117 shootings and 17 deaths. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. We need to have our police officers have the respect and dignity back. In this particular case, I saw something that didn't look good to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
So can you get a little more specific back to the immunity question? Who would make those
Well, right now,
distinctions?
for the most part, people are protected by their unions, by their police unions, or by their police departments. But I'm saying if I felt, or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime, or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and making an innocent mistake. But if somebody made an innocent mistake, I would want to help that person.
What would those exceptions be? What would determine
You
an
go
innocent
after
mistake?
somebody and it's a very close call and it's very dangerous. And you know, they have, the policeman's life and woman is a very difficult thing because sometimes you have less than a second to make a, you know, life and death decision. And sometimes very bad decisions are made. They're not made from an evil standpoint, but they're made from the standpoint of they made a mistake.
So I want to follow up really quickly. You know, I find it interesting because you do talk about reining in prosecutors, especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism apply to law enforcement?
Well, I've been prosecuted because I'm a political opponent of two people that have weaponized our justice system. I've been prosecuted. I just won the big case in Florida. Everyone said that was the biggest case. That was the most difficult case. And I just won it. Now, Biden has a similar case, except...
Wait a minute. Which one did he win? Is that the one they threw out?
Yes, that is the one that was dismissed.
Yeah, he didn't win anything.
Dismissed.
Yeah.
And he sees that as, I won it.
Well, I mean...
Absolutely.
Yeah. God, I don't know how anybody can vote for this. How can you listen to that guy talk and go like, yeah, that's my guy?
Yeah,
You have to
even with
also
that question of, you know, about immunity. Like he was basically saying like, oh yeah, we need to have immunity, except for the people that shouldn't have immunity. But you know, we should have immunity. I mean, he wasn't using that word, but it was still that idea. Like ultimately, I think the part that was the most accurate when he said, you know, I would decide, or you know, others would decide. I think that's literally what he thinks, is that just whenever there's a case like this, it'll come before his desk, and he can be like, no, I don't like it. This guy doesn't get immunity, but everyone else,
judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's like, okay, but oh my God, you have to be just as dumb as him in order to vote for him, to listen to him. Mm-hmm. Like he said nothing. Yeah. It was just a bunch of incoherent jibber jabber.
Exactly.
Just because he knows that there's a contradiction there, but he just won't admit to it. He just vaguely dances around the edges of things, and it's so painfully obvious in any other circumstance, for any other reason whatsoever, that somebody was being questioned.
Yep.
That wouldn't fly. Anyway, how else is he gonna stick his foot in his mouth?
Much worse, I was protected under the Presidential Records Act. Biden wasn't, because he wasn't president at the time.
He likes playing that accordion, doesn't he? The invisible accordion.
Right. Also, he, you know, keeping in mind that Trump was also not president at the time of these issues here.
Right, exactly. It's like, oh my God. The level of cognitive dissonance. It's just... I just think Trump is just throwing shit at the wall. His entire life has just been a series of what the fuck, you know? Have you seen that Bill Maher segment? The last real time.
I mean, I saw whatever the most recent episode was that before they went on the break.
Bill Maher, real time.
Yeah, of Bill Maher.
Yeah, where he's talking about Trump. On the new rules.
I don't remember
segment,
the details.
Where he was talking about how he had mentioned the movie Religulous.
Okay, yeah, I do remember him mentioning that.
Yeah, okay, yep. So you saw that then.
Yeah.
Okay. That was pretty funny, I thought.
Yeah, I did generally enjoy that one. It's just, I still just don't care for the jarring, like, I have to do this segment now. Like, and it always seems to just never be an easy transition from the, I think, far more interesting debate.
Yeah,
between
I know.
The people that he has.
Right. I don't think that
every
debate...
time it happens, I'm just like, it's almost like I'm going into a commercial break.
I guess, but that's the only reason why I watch his show is for the new rules segment.
Oh, really?
I don't really
Interesting.
care about unless it's somebody I care about, like it's interesting debate between the two people. But he doesn't really have interesting guests on lately.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, and I may have been more picking and choosing the guests when I was doing the episodes.
Yeah,
So yeah, if I were sitting through ones that weren't as interesting, that's
because I know what you mean. Yeah, sometimes if it's an interesting debate and they have something, it's like, oh crap, I wanted to keep going. But if you go to YouTube, you can see the overtime,
okay.
which is more of it. They go back and they talk more. It's like after the new rules, but it's only on YouTube.
Okay.
So that's like an extra 20, 30
pretty
minutes.
good.
I don't know how long it is, but it's like an extra, it's a little bit longer. Because a lot of the times they'll get the first guy, whoever was the first guy that they talked to. In this case, it was Pete Buttigieg. But
Right.
so usually they will come back and it'll be everybody for
Nice.
overtime.
That does sound good.
Yeah. Anyway, here we go.
Yep.
And he had 50 years worth of documents, and they ruled that he was incompetent, and therefore he shouldn't stand trial. And I said, isn't that something? He's incompetent and he can't stand trial, and yet he can be president. Isn't that nice?
Mr. President,
but
I
they
want to
released him on the basis that he was incompetent. They said he had no memory, and he was a nice old guy, but he had no memory, and therefore we're not going to prosecute him. I won the case, and it got very little publicity. I didn't notice ABC doing any publicity on it, George.
We covered you
George
extensively, sir. I'd
Slopadopoulos.
love to move over onto
I
different
didn't notice
topics
you do
now.
any.
You got that in there. The George Slopadopoulos. Oh my God, he's such a fuck.
Yep.
Publicity on it at all. I won the case, the biggest case. This is an attack on a political opponent. I have another one where
Sir,
I
if
have
you
a
don't mind, I'd
hostile
love
judge.
to. We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different
No,
topics.
excuse
if
you.
we
You're the
can.
one that held me up at 35 minutes, just so you understand.
If we can move on now to the state of the race, sir, I want to get back to the campaign. Senator J.D. Vance is your running mate. He's had a lot of controversy lately, and I want to read you a few things that he has said in the past. He said the Democrats running the country are a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. He's not talking here about how great it is to be a parent. He's attacking what he says are the choices people are making to not have children. Did you know that he had these views about people who do not have children before you picked him to be your running mate, and do you agree with him?
No, I know this. He is very family oriented, and he thinks family is a great thing. That doesn't mean he thinks that if you don't have a family, it's not. I know people with families. I know people with great families. I know people with very troubled families. And I also know people with no families. They didn't meet the right person. Things happen. You go through life, you don't meet the right person.
But he's not just talking
Excuse
about
me.
families here.
And
He also
some of
says that
those
people that don't have children should get less votes than
That's
those
all
that
right.
do.
I'm just speaking for myself.
that your
and I
campaign
think I'm
position?
speaking for him, too. He strongly believes in family, but I know people with great families. I know people with not great families that don't have a family. And the people without the family are far better. They're superior in many cases, okay? He's not saying they're not. What he's saying is that he thinks the family experience is a very important thing. It's a very good thing. But that doesn't mean that if you grow up and you grow older and you don't meet somebody that would be wonderful to meet and would have been good, that that's a bad thing. He's not saying that. My interpretation, you'll have to ask him, actually, but my interpretation is he's strongly family-oriented, but that doesn't mean if you don't have a family, there's something wrong with it.
Just
Mr.
one last
President?
point, and then we'll move.
I don't think Trump likes his family.
Like that's the takeaway.
Yeah.
I mean, probably true.
Obviously, he's just trying to cover for the fucktard that he picked for VP, but
Yeah, because it's once again one of those very easy questions of like, do you think that somebody without a family should get less of a vote than somebody with a family?
yeah.
You just say no. Like
Right.
one country, one person, one vote, done.
Mm-hmm.
Like you shouldn't have to be dragging this out and running around in circles for such a basic answer.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you actually believe that, in which case, what the hell?
Trump has a massive family, but he also, I don't think, he has a wife that doesn't really like him. And
Yeah, that has seemed so I mean, especially since the trial. I don't remember if I, mentioned that to you or whatever, my thoughts on that. But I mean, her not coming on any of the days, like if there was any doubt in anyone's mind that there was that she's just playing the part of his wife when
she has a lot of money
necessary
and has nice creature comforts. Well, he's cash poor. He's always been cash poor. He has a lot of assets. But she's just like, ugh. She hates it, but she was having a good time at the RNC, getting all that attention. But whatever. And his I feel really bad for his kids and grandkids. That's who I feel really bad for. That they have to grow up in this crap.
Or at least maybe the ones that are not as directly involved.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ones that are involved, I mean, they're part of the problem. So.
I know. Well, his granddaughter's that was given the speech at the RNC. It's like she's not old enough to really comprehend the seriousness and the implications of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for them because they could eventually grow up by the time they get into college, and all of a sudden go like, oh, kind of like Elon Musk's daughter.
Right, yeah. I've definitely been seeing a lot of that. And then also, the Trump family members that have specifically endorsed Kamala. And they've been saying their piece as well.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know there were Trump family members that endorsed Kamala Harris, but I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know he's got a sister or something. Right?
Yeah, and then I think it's also his niece or something.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, they're definitely in that black sheep of the family situation. I'm sure at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But
there you go. That's what he's talking about.
They are vocal opponents of Trump and his ridiculousness on social media.
Mm-hmm. The cat ladies.
Yeah.
I don't know, but he's obviously he's trying to play defense, but I mean, it's just they picked a bad VP.
Oh yeah.
And then to Trump say well, Walt said it the other day. Don't let him lie to you about the fact that he knows nothing about Project 2025. Mm-hmm. J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for Project 2025.
Well, I mean, it's like they analyzed one of his tweets or whatever, where Trump was like, I don't know anything about Project 2025, and I don't agree with it. It's like, how do you not agree with it if you don't know anything about it?
Oh yeah, moron. How can you listen to that? Oh, yeah, I don't know anything about that, and I don't agree with it. What? That's so silly.
Right.
That's like,
but yeah, no,
I've never heard of that band. I hate their music.
Nice.
Yeah.
Move on. Just one of the bedrock principles of American life is one person, one vote. Senator J.D. Vance has suggested that someone who has children should have more votes than a person who does not have children. I just want to be clear here. Is that the position of your campaign?
Well, no, but it's not something I have ever heard before. I can tell you this. Right now you have illegal aliens coming into our country, many from prisons and many from mental institutions, and they want to give them votes. I don't think they should have votes. They came into our country illegally, and they're taking the vote away from all of the people in this room that have been here a long time, that have worked hard, that in many cases, and you'll see this happening, if I'm not elected, you're going to see it happening. If I am, you're not going to have any problem. But you're going to see it happening a long time. You're going to see the people in this room and people outside of this room are going to be losing their jobs to people that have come into this country illegally.
Mr. President, can we stay with just kind of the state of the race right now? Because I felt like that vice president question, candidate question was right in there with that. Yeah. So let's talk about J.D. Vance for a little bit. He's had some stumbles out of the gate. I don't know if you're hearing what we hear as reporters, but it's been a tough couple of weeks for him. Why did you choose J.D. Vance? Why did you choose him? And I'm having a hard time hearing too. I know everybody out there can, but it's hard to hear.
I'll tell you why. I chose him because he's a very strong believer in work and the working man and woman, and especially the working man and woman who have been treated very unfairly, because you have many of them in this room. But you have many of those people, they were treated very unfairly. They worked very hard and they were treated unfairly. He wrote the book that became a bestseller. The movie became a smash hit. He's a very smart guy without the benefit of having a family that has contacts, like a father that was well connected. He got into...
What became a smash hit?
Hillbilly Elegy.
Is that a movie?
Apparently. I found that out after he was picked, and they were like, "Oh yeah, he's the guy that wrote that book," and then they turned it into a movie, and I was like, "Oh,
they did."
Never heard of either one.
Never heard of anyone. Yeah, either one. Is it on? What is it on YouTube?
You know, I never really looked. On,
probably is. It's probably got to be on YouTube or Vimeo or something. Nope, it's only a Facebook upload. You got to
go. Just shot with a camcorder.
Yeah. It would be appropriate.
It would be appropriate something like that and call it a smash hit.
Yeah, it would be appropriate, right? Being called Hillbilly Elegy. You don't want to use like top of the line Alexa HD cameras. You can use a shitty camcorder. Still record to DVR or not DVR, but DV and CDs, little mini DVs.
DV, we can't afford the R.
We can't afford the R. Yeah. Oh no, that's no. I'm gonna bring out my Betamax. 8mm, no sound. You don't need it.
Nice.
Yeah. Ding 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 ding. Don't they already? I thought they already had the Hillbilly documentary. It was as Jed and his family. That barely kept him fed. Yeah.
I mean, looking at J.D. Vance's life story, it seems like that would be more appropriate.
Mm-hmm. But didn't he go to Yale?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I've been seeing people pointing out. It's like this does not apply to you.
Mm-hmm. Just because he happens to be from, where is he? Isn't he from the same area like Walls? For
some reason I was thinking he's like Southern Ohio or something.
Vance?
Was Vance?
Because Walls is from Nebraska.
Yeah, I think and I know there was a good comparison between them on that of basically pointing out things like, you know, went to Ivy League school, you know, was like, you know, like a millionaire or whatever, like all that kind of stuff, and it just being like, you know, in what way is he connecting to Heartland America?
Yeah, in what way? They were both in the military, right?
Yes, from my understanding, but I think it was like Walls was in for like much longer.
That's cool. I
mean, I'm not sure either one was actually deployed.
Yeah.
From what I've been gathering,
it's cool that you have like people in the same Democratic Party that are involved, that are going to be involved. You know, hopefully Kamala wins. That would be involved in the administration. You have Pete Buttigieg, and then you have JD Vance, and then not JD Vance, jeez, and you have Tim Walz, and you know, I'm sure there are others as well, but it's cool to see that they have the, you know, military service that really, you know, shows that not all military people are some like crazy MAGA fucktard, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I love that response that like Buttigieg did. I think it was on the Daily Show of you know, saying like Vance was you know, arguing that there's not as much of an investment into this country if you don't have, you know, a family, and then he like shared that story of his like, you know, personal experience when he was overseas, you know, fighting for the country. It, you know, it felt very real to him at the time. It's like, that's good.
Yeah.
That is the exact comeback you need for sure to that ridiculous argument.
Exactly. And yeah, Pete Buttigieg has been knocking it out of the park lately on his interviews. And the one on Bill Maher, that wasn't so great because that was before Biden dropped out, because he was like defending Biden. But he didn't say anything horrible or anything stupid like unfortunately, Bernie Sanders and AOC, oh yeah, we're right, we're riding with Biden, we're just supporting him, you know. But anyway,
Yeah. But I mean, I could also see Bernie more than anybody making that argument to say like, yeah, sometimes people are too old, but not everyone's too old. Like, look at me.
like, look at him, yeah.
I'm still very energetic, very passionate about my views, and willing to,
Yeah,
do
but
whatever it takes to get those across.
right,
Like,
but even young people, you can meet the same person. Oh, they're one. You can have somebody younger than you, and they're just all messed up, and they just
for
don't have
sure.
their shit together. It has nothing to do with anything. It's Bernie has all his faculties, and Biden is just, you know, as Bill Maher put it, a gentle breeze away from death. And
Yes, so in most things that I've seen for Biden, it does very much seem like he is like struggling to hold it together. I would agree with that.
I guess he needs some more chocolate chip cookies. That's why I'm glad he stepped out. But that's the other thing, no. He stepped down. He stepped out of it. Trump would never do that.
Yeah, like I will be like flabbergasted if we even get wind that he's considering it.
And who the fuck would? He can't at this point. Nobody else. The Republican Party has been for a long time, probably since Reagan. And part of the is I'm trying to say this. Republican Party has been primarily based upon name recognition and cult of personality.
Yep.
And because after, you know, H.W. Bush got into power, won the election after Reagan because he was the VP.
Yep.
And people knew him. And then I forget who was running against him, but he was weak. He was a very weak candidate. But then Clinton won because Bush dragged us into Desert Storm. And granted, he didn't really have much of a choice, but that's a whole nother thing. But, you know, he lied. You know, read my lips, no more taxes. Raise taxes anyway. And then you had Clinton, Dole, he didn't stand a chance. And then Al Gore and George W. Bush, had Gore contested the election count, he would have won.
Yeah.
But the only reason why Bush became popular enough is because, again, name recognition. And then who's the next Republican president?
Yeah.
This guy.
And it's also still another link back to Reagan. It's like, oh, Reagan's VP, the son of Reagan's VP.
Right, exactly. Link back to Reagan. And then, so the only reason why Trump, McCain, Romney, no, not going to vote for the crazy Mormon. Are you out of your mind? And then the only other guy that won, again, popularity, cult of personality, Donald Trump. And of course the whole 4chan thing and all the internet and misinformation surrounding that. But Hillary Clinton was also huge name recognition. So it was it was a very close race. But Donald Trump won. And now people were so terrible. I mean, Joe Biden, again, his name recognition because of Obama. But people also were tired of Trump. So now we're in this situation where Kamala Harris and J.D. Vance, I mean, if you become vice president or you become running as president, you become popular overnight. Pretty much. People will know who you are.
Yeah, even if you don't do well, then in the next cycle, they're going to be like, oh, I think I remember that person.
Right, exactly.
And so on forward.
But
and just even that recognition is like I would say like Amy Klobuchar is a good example. Like I didn't know who the hell she was,
right?
And then she ran, and now when her name pops up, it's like, oh, she's on the Senate committee of blah blah blah. I'm like, oh yeah, Amy Klobuchar. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So But with the Republicans, it really has to be major name recognition to get them out. You do not see, and we have not seen, an unknown random Republican, senator or governor or whatever, running for president and get the nomination. It's always been cult of personality. And they're the only ones that have ever run celebrities before.
Yeah.
So, hopefully, it'd be nice if we could just have like another 16 years of just Democratic, rule and get rid of the. Ideally, have more Tim Walzes. Anyway.
To Yale Law School. He graduated in 2 years from Ohio State, summa cum laude. You take a look at, his career has been an amazing career. He started off at a level with a difficult family situation, very difficult, with the mother and the father and everything else. He ends up
Yes, that's what a family usually encompasses.
Right.
going to Yale Law School and was one of the top students, became the head of the Law Journal. It's an amazing thing. He's a 4-year, he was in the military with great distinction for 4 years, got out, went into business, became successful in business, very successful in business, actually, did public.
But not as successful as me.
Yeah, right. Oh, those undertones he's trying to say.
Yeah.
Offerings and other things. And I have to believe in that. He's somebody that was born in a rough situation. Most of the people know that situation because it was very well documented in his book. And I have a lot of respect for somebody that can get into Yale and become one of the best students in Yale, that meets a young woman at Yale who was also outstanding, and they get married, they have a beautiful family. But he had he's made himself an amazing life. He then goes to Ohio, lives in Ohio, and he had my endorsement. That helped.
I guess not.
But he wins the Senate. He becomes a United States Senator. So he's a United States Senator.
So,
so Harris, like I respect you for your success, I respect people for their success.
The reason I asked the question is because the last time you and I sat and talked was the day that you were shot. We'd been together for much of that day. You left to go to Butler, Pennsylvania, and we didn't know what was next.
Yeah.
And 2 days after that...
I cannot understand. Your microphone
I know,
is so
it is
muffled.
really hard for me to understand you, too.
I can understand you perfectly.
Because she's closer.
I can understand you.
I'm happy to hear that, sir.
But I can't
really
understand, Harris.
I have a few more questions.
Because of the distance, and the mics are really in lousy shape, but I cannot understand
Are you asking a question?
what you're saying.
So what I wanted to say was the last time we spoke, you said some words that were prophetic because I asked you who you wanted to choose for vice president.
Yeah.
And you said normally it really wouldn't matter what they would bring. You choose somebody that you think has a future, that sort of thing. But you said these words 3.5 hours before an attempted assassination on your life. You told me that bad things happen, Harris. And that's why this decision is important this time. Bad things happen. You said it twice. When you look at J.D. Vance, is he ready on day one?
Does he what?
Ready on day one, if he has to be.
I've always had great respect for him. And
He is from Ohio, Middletown, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
for the other candidates, too. But I will say this, and I think this is well documented. Historically, the vice president, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. Virtually no impact. You have 2 or 3 days where there's a lot of commotion as to who, like you're having it on the Democrat side, who it's going to be. And then that dies down, and it's all about the presidential pick. Virtually never has it mattered. Maybe Lyndon Johnson mattered for different reasons than what we're talking about, not for vote reasons, but for political reasons, other political reasons. But historically,
You mean because Kennedy was killed?
Right, which is exactly what the question is. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
the choice of a vice president makes no difference. You're voting for the president, and you can have a vice president who's outstanding in every way, and I think J.D. is. I think that all of them would have been. But you're not voting that way. You're voting for the president. You're voting for me. If you like me, I'm going to win. If you don't like me, I'm not going to win.
I'm going to get my J.D. Vance question in.
Well, that's partially true. The truest thing he said so far.
I think he's definitely downplaying the VP choice as much as possible to say that it has no impact whatsoever.
Right.
But yes, I will say for the average American, at the end of the day, you're probably not going to be like, oh, I'm 50-50 on both candidates. Let me compare the vice presidents to really break the tie.
Right.
You know, nobody's doing that.
Yeah, nobody's fucking doing that. What a moron. Yeah, of course. I mean, Tim Walz. Did you see when the announcement with Walz?
I'm gonna say no.
No.
Because I've seen some things on just like generally for it, but of like them doing like the rally.
Yeah, the rally.
Like I saw the stuff of their first rally together. So if you know about that, then
yeah, well,
I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw like the giant crowds and everything they pulled.
No, but I mean like his speech.
Oh no, I did not watch.
Oh man, it's great. I should put that on afterwards.
Yeah, totally.
It's cool. It's really. I missed Kamala's because it was last night. I didn't get to that. I didn't see that point, but I saw part of Walz had just come on when I tuned in. Yeah.
Nice.
J.D. Vance?
I'm going to get my J.D. Vance question in. To your point and to Rachel's point,
how many couches does he have?
he, has a lot of opinions about childless women like myself or divorced people like yourself. Do you think, well, I mean, my point is here.
But at least it was said in a friendly manner.
My point is, do you think the Republican Party is getting a little bit too judgy about people's lives when you think about abortion or when you think about what J.D. Vance is saying?
I don't think, look, I think that the Democrat Party is really the one that has the problem. I think they're radical on abortion because they're allowing abortion in the 9th month. They're allowing the death.
But I think
that is not true. That is such a
it's
bunch
the most,
of fucking
I mean,
horseshit.
He's going to double down on that in a moment.
Oh,
of course.
It's just such misleading information. It's like, yes, it's allowed up to birth as far as because the technical term of have an abortion, let's say the baby is dead, it dies.
Yep.
You have to perform an abortion technically to save the mother. So that is a law that's in place that allows it to happen, or you can perform but you're just inducing birth for the most part. If you're getting up to the 9th month, there's no abortion to be had. The only reason why you would perform that is if the baby is dead.
Yeah, but somehow it's like Republican lawmakers have never heard the concept of a pregnancy not following just the perfect normative, scenario.
Right. Well, it's the old Republican adage: until it happens to you, or there should be the Democratic adage. It's until it happens to them, they don't get it.
Yep.
So.
They're allowing the death of a baby after the baby is born, based on the governor of Virginia.
In every state in the country.
That's not even possible.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the thing. Like in Virginia, after the baby is born, they show it to the parents and say, "Would you like to keep this?" And sometimes they say no.
Oh. And then they kill it.
It's awful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, right? Like that's the only possible scenario that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's just so stupid.
Nobody's doing that.
Yeah, nobody's doing that. That doesn't even make any sense.
Based on the governor of Virginia, they're allowing the death of the baby after it's born. They're allowing abortions in the 8th and 9th month.
Well, Democrats have denied.
I think they're right. And I think the Republican Party is actually much less. I think I've made them much less radical, perhaps. But the Republican Party, what we're doing is bringing it back to the states where everybody wanted it. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservative, everybody wanted abortion brought back. They didn't want Roe v. Wade in the federal government. They wanted it. Everybody
But the majority of Americans oppose Roe v. Wade being overturned.
They don't know about this. Right now, they're voting. It brought it back to the states. Now, I happen to believe in the 3 exceptions. Ronald Reagan believed with rape, incest, life of the mother. I do. I think most people do. I think most Republicans do also. But if you take a look, right now they're doing, it's an amazing thing, out of the federal government, it's in states, and people are voting. And I will say, Ohio is, let's call it a more liberal version, has been approved. Kansas, the same thing, a little bit surprising to a lot of people. But the people are now voting. And it's taking this issue that's been going on for 52 years and has torn our country apart, and it's giving it to the people to vote on.
Yeah, and he lost the last election.
Right? Yeah. It's like, I think that since Roe v. Wade occurred, people's voices have been loud and clear of recognizing where the problem lies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, Mitch McConnell.
And they're voting. And many states have already voted. Others are in the process of voting. And it's bringing it back to the people and a vote of the people.
I think Mitch McConnell's gone back in his shell. His turtle shell at this point. I haven't heard, nobody's heard anything from him lately. Is he dead? He's still alive, right?
Yeah, no, and he did say something, actually he said something surprising lately, I think was an acknowledgement, as many Republicans have been doing, of the being like, yeah, we had a border bill and we said no because Trump didn't want it. And yeah, it's refreshing to see that a few of them are willing to admit the truth, and one of them being Mitch McConnell is surprising.
And it's not at all radical. And again, you have to follow your heart. I happen to believe in the 3 exceptions. Most people believe in the 3 exceptions. Most Republicans believe in the exceptions. But they don't want to see an abortion in the 9th month or the 8th month. Almost everybody agrees to that. And they certainly don't want to see, in the case of the governor of Virginia, the former governor, I might add, who said, we set the baby aside and then we decide what to do. Meaning, what do? We execute the baby. That's a radical...
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, right? Apparently, in Trump world, that is something that's happening in Virginia, like
people
today,
actually,
as we speak.
Yeah, people actually think this happens. What the fuck? It's called inducing labor, and that happens if they have to. Again, life of the mother, da, 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 blah blah blah, and then, yeah, it's not possible. And if you do it, the baby's going to be viable. So there's not,
horrible position. And some people want that. I don't want it. Most people don't.
Thank you. Can I just pivot really quickly to another question about, you brought up health, Harris. You're an active man. We see you golfing all the time. But if you win, you'll still be president at 82, which is older than Biden is right now.
But not mentally. Look, mentally.
Here's the question.
He's shot. But most people...
Would you consider...
Most people... I know many people in their 80s and their 90s that are in great shape. Some of our greatest leaders. You look at throughout the world history, the greatest leaders, some of the greatest leaders in the world were in their 80s.
But here's the question. Would you consider stepping down if you felt that your health was declining? Or would you...
Oh, absolutely.
And who would make...
I think I'd know.
How would you make that decision?
I think I'd know. Look, if I came onto a stage like this and I got treated so rudely as this woman treated
Oh my goodness.
me, and I'm fine with it because she was very rude, sir.
he just can't let it go. He's so petty.
You can't. Yeah.
He's so petty. And all she did was just point out a bunch of facts. This is stuff that you said.
At worst, she jumped into her first question a little too quickly without, I guess, doing whatever proper deference of, hi, hello, how's it going? Oh, you've had a good day? And all that kind of like small talk.
The decorum.
Which doesn't make sense on a panel.
You're talking about talking to the guy that literally killed decorum in politics.
Right.
That's why she didn't do it.
And it's like, yeah, it's like, that is that really the worst you could levy at her? It's like, no, that's... It is utterly ridiculous. It's basically, he didn't want to answer the question, and so he has to keep up this, ongoing kind of feud, to just be like, not only am I not going to answer that first question, I'm going to make it clear that I will not be answering, as few questions from you as possible, because now we have this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's silly, and he wouldn't step down.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, he basically just said, "Oh, if I determine that I am not of proper health," it's like, how convenient that he gets to be the one to decide that.
Right.
In the same way, like, he's the one that's deciding whether an election is fair or not.
Mm-hmm.
Very rude. That was a nasty. That wasn't a question. She
Sir,
didn't ask
you
me
can
a
answer the
question.
question.
She gave a statement. That wasn't a question.
I repeated
You
your
can answer the
statement, sir,
question.
actually.
You said you would. You would
Oh,
make that
absolutely.
decision
If I
to step
thought
down.
that I was failing in some way, I want people to be sharp. I'll go a step further. I want anybody running for president to take an aptitude test, to take a cognitive test. I think it's a great idea. And I took 2 of them, and I aced them.
Well, can I
got 'em.
just-
I took 2 of them. But let me ask you.
Yeah.
I would like to have people running for president, and I don't mean because they're 75 or 85. I think anybody running, I'd like to do it. People say it's not constitutional. I would like to have something passed where you can do it. I think we should know. I mean, I've watched what's happened in the last couple of years under this gentleman, and our country is a mess. We have inflation. We have the millions of people falling in. We have Afghanistan, which was the worst, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. What he has done to our country, and her too, what they've done to our country, she has been a horrible vice president. She's considered the worst vice president in the history of our country.
Don't mean to
President-
interrupt you, but would you consider taking the cognitive test
Mr. President,
I would love to
and
do
make
it.
it public?
Well, I've already taken 2 of them, but I'll do it again.
Mr.
I
President,
suggested,
how do you
Your president.
intend to...
I suggested, Harris, that let's take one. I said, Joe and I will go and take a cognitive test. Now, I'd do it with her, too. I would do it with her also. You know what? She failed her law exam. She didn't pass her law exam, so maybe she wouldn't pass the cognitive test.
Mr.
Are you
President,
saying she wouldn't pass? Just to be clear,
I'm just giving you the facts.
to be clear, you don't think
I'm
Harris
just
would
how do
pass
you
the
giving the
intend,
facts.
and
She didn't
look,
pass her bar exam, and she didn't think she would pass it, and she didn't think she was going to have to pass it. And I don't know what happened. Maybe she passed it. I
She
guess
did pass it.
There's a
She
man
did-
over
she
here.
did
I
in
think
fact pass
he
it.
must work for
Mr.
her.
President, I would love to ask you about January 6th. You've called yourself the candidate of law and order.
Yeah.
When Time Magazine asked you if you would consider pardoning all the rioters, you said, yes, absolutely.
Sure.
You called them patriots. 140 police officers were assaulted that day. Their injuries included broken bones, at least one officer lost an eye, one had 2 cracked ribs, 2 smashed spinal discs, another had a stroke. Were the people who assaulted those 140 officers, including those I just mentioned, patriots who deserve pardons?
Well, let me bring it back to modern day. Like about 5 days ago, we had an attack on the Capitol, a horrible attack on the Capitol. You saw the people that were protesting and spraying these incredible monuments, bells, lions, all these magnificent limestone and granite with red paint, red spray paint that will never actually come off, especially on the limestone. It will never, I'm a builder, I know about this stuff. It'll never, you'll see it in 100 years from now. They viciously attacked our government. They fought with police. They fought with them much more openly than I saw on January 6th.
Pressure washer.
Right? It's like they viciously attacked with spray paint. Against stone.
You know what? You know what gets rid of paint? More paint.
I know. What a shocker.
Yeah. So stupid.
What's going to happen to those people? What's going to happen to the people in Portland that destroyed
But sir, my
that
question
city?
is on those.
What's going to happen to
my
the
question
people
is
that
on
tried
those
to burn
rioters
down-
who assaulted
Excuse me.
officers.
You have to
Would
ask,
you pardon
what's
those
going to
people?
happen? Oh, absolutely, I would.
You
If
would
they're
pardon those-
innocent- If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just well, they were convicted by a very tough system. How come the people that tried to burn down Minneapolis, how come the people that took over a large percentage of Seattle, how come nothing happened to them? How come the
But
people
sir, we're
that,
talking about
how
people
come
that
the
were
people-
seen
no, no,
beating
no. We're
officers
talking
with
about federal
flagpoles,
buildings.
dragging them down the stairs. They're on video. Have you seen that
Really?
video,
Oh,
sir?
really? Well, they
you would
shot-
pardon those. You would pardon those rioters?
They shot a young lady in the face who was protesting. They shot her in the face. You know, nobody died that day. You do know that. But people died in Seattle. Nobody died, but people died in
140
Minneapolis.
officers
You know,
were
people died in
assaulted that
Minneapolis.
day.
And nothing happens, and nobody ever talks, and nothing happens to those people. But you went after the J6 people with a vengeance. And I'll tell you what about the cops that were, and I'm all for the police, as you know, but what about the police that are ushering everybody into the Capitol? Go in, go in, go in. What about that? Look,
No one was
nothing
ushered
is
into the Capitol.
nothing is perfect in life, but you have people from Minneapolis. You have people just from 5 days ago in Washington, D.C. They were having fistfights and fighting with the police. They were spraying and destroying. They were desecrating our monuments in Washington, D.C. 5 days ago, and nothing happened to them. And you can't have two systems of justice. That's why they went after me as a political opponent, because they felt they couldn't win without doing that. And we're going to win our cases, and we're going to be vindicated. But I have to spend a lot of time on that and money. That's what they want. After the election, they won't care. Although in my case, I think they probably will, because the hatred is pretty deep. But I'll tell you, they went after me as a political opponent. That's never happened in our country before, and it sets a terrible, terrible precedent.
What do you do on day one if you win? What's your first thing?
What do? I close the border. And I do two things, because I can do a lot of things simultaneously. I close the border. We don't want people coming in. We want people to come in, Harris, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. They have to come in legally. We want
Legal,
people. I want
yeah.
people to come into our country, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. So when you say, what do? That, and I drill, baby, drill. I bring energy way down. I bring interest rates down. I bring inflation way down, so people can buy bacon again, so people can buy a ham sandwich again, so that people can go to a restaurant.
I had a ham sandwich for lunch.
I mean,
was-
I didn't realize you were a millionaire.
Yeah,
Wow, I'm gonna need some of that.
amazing.
I too would like a ham sandwich, please.
Yeah. It was a toasted ham sandwich with Munster cheese.
La ti da.
Yeah. With Munster cheese, honey mustard, and tomatoes.
Oh my God.
And afford it, because right now people can't buy food. Your grocery bills are up 40, 50, 60%, right? She's agreeing to me. Oh, she's agreeing. Thank you. I like you very much.
Mr. President, I think we are.
But it's true. Your grocery bills are up, and then they're mandating that you buy an all-electric car. You know, Elon Musk endorsed me, and he's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. But I'm against everybody having an electric car. Okay, I'm very much against that. You have to be able to, if you want a hybrid or if you want a gasoline-propelled car. But, you know, we have more liquid gold, gasoline, oil, under our feet than any other country. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than any other country. I want to use it. I want to use what we have. I want to bring down prices, bring down costs, and I also have to stop the invasion. And remember, they're taking your jobs. These people coming in are taking your jobs.
Project
Mr. President,
2025.
I think we have to leave it there by the
Okay.
Trump team.
All right.
So
Yeah.
leave it. That is the last word. Thank you so much, Mr. Trump, for coming today and joining us.
Well, thank you very much.
They've been telling us.
I
Thank
can't
you.
hear him.
Thank you, everybody, very much. Great
Thank
honor.
you, Mr. President.
So the Trump team cut it short.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, based on his performance, I could see them watching and being like, "Oh, is he gonna pull this out?" You know, it's like a rough start, and after a bit, they're like, "No, get him out of there. Get him out of there." Yeah.
I don't know, he just
And I mean, the
seems
next
like-
question was going to be Project 2025. Like, I don't know if they have the questions in advance,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also a pretty good indication of them being like, no answering that one.
Mm-hmm.
We need to move on."
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. I mean, that's. I mean, would you agree that that was like a much more like notable thing than the RNC for him?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like nonstop, like just like his inability to answer those questions, and the fact that they were willing to actually like push him a bit on those
Right.
was really nice.
So I don't know. Yeah, with this one, I mean, I just want if you saw where does Walls come into it? Right here.
It seems like you're just about there.
Yeah. I think this is this is it. This is the Philadelphia. It's just we've heard Harris speak before, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Madam Vice President, for the trust you put in me, but maybe more so, thank you for bringing back the joy. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you and Doug, this incredible journey. And Pennsylvania, I know you know this, but my God, what a treasure you have in Josh Shapiro.
For the bases.
Holy hell, can this guy bring the fire? He can bring the fire. This is a visionary leader. Also, I have to tell you, everybody in America knows when you need a bridge fixed, call that guy. And I think sometimes we forget and you see people a little one-dimensional, but seeing a guy who cares so deeply about his family, a man with compassion, vision, and I'll have to tell you this, I know this from experience. There is no one you would rather go to a Springsteen concert in Jersey with than him. Whoops.
He knows his culture.
And I can't wait for all of you and America to get to know my incredible wife, Gwen, a 29-year public school educator.
I actually didn't know that about her, but I do like him having the education background.
Yeah.
Don't ever underestimate teachers. And our two beautiful kids, Hope and Gus. I couldn't be prouder to be on this ticket and to help Vice President Harris become what we all know is very, very good for us to think about. Next President of the United States of America. From her first day as a prosecutor, as a district attorney, Attorney General of the great state of California, a United States Senator, and Vice President of the United States. Vice President Harris has fought on the side of the American people. She took on the predators, she took on the fraudsters, she took down the transnational gangs, she stood up against powerful corporate interests, and she never hesitated to reach across the aisle if it meant improving people's lives. And I want all of you to hold this and don't ever underestimate the power of this. She does it all with a sense of joy. I know a little something about that commitment to people. I was born in West Point, Nebraska. I lived in Butte, a small town of 400, where community was a way of life. Growing up, I spent the summers working on the family farm. My mom and dad taught us, show generosity towards your neighbors and work for a common good. My dad served in the Army during the Korean War. With his encouragement, at 17, I joined the Army National Guard.
Army National Guard. Okay.
For 24 years, I proudly wore the uniform of this nation.
That's quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I mean that's a career.
The National Guard gave me purpose. It gave me the strength of a shared commitment to something greater than ourselves. And just as it did for my dad and millions of others, the GI Bill gave me a shot at a college education. My dad was a teacher. My brothers and sisters and I followed in their footsteps. 3 out of 4 of us married teachers. What we do. For nearly 20 years, I had the privilege of teaching high school social studies and coaching football.
That's pretty relatable, coaching football thing.
Including winning that state championship. Don't ever close the yearbook. But it was my students. They encouraged me to run for office. They saw in me what I was hoping to instill in them, a commitment of common good, a belief that one person can make a difference. So in 2006, I took a leap and I ran for Congress. And because high school teachers are super optimistic, I was running in a district that had 1 Democrat since 1892. Well, my neighbors graced me with an opportunity to represent them in the United States House of Representatives. I'm proud of the work we did there together. I worked across the aisle on veterans issues, on agriculture, and on ways to grow rural economies. I learned the art of compromise without compromising my values. And now, as governor of the great state of Minnesota, I bring those experiences to bear in tackling the challenges that are facing our great state. Minnesota's strength comes from our values, our commitment to working together, to seeing past our differences, to always being willing to lend a helping hand. Those are the same values I learned on the family farm and tried to instill in my students. I took it to Congress and to the state capitol, and now Vice President Harris and I are running to take those very values to the White House.
Whoa.
Now, Donald Trump sees the world a little differently than us.
This is actual boo, not
First of
Bruce.
all, he doesn't know the first thing about service. He doesn't have time for it because he's too busy serving himself.
Nice.
Again and again and again, Trump weakens our economy to strengthen his own hand. He mocks our laws. He sows chaos and division. And that's to say nothing of his record as president. He froze in the face of the COVID crisis. He drove our economy into the ground. And make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed.
Oh, it gets better.
Yeah, I have heard that one. That got a lot of traction.
Ah.
You know, some of us
Lock him up. Oh my God.
Some of us in here are old enough to remember. I see you down there. I see those old white guys. Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
Nice.
Yeah.
These guys are after my heart chanting, mind your own damn business. That feels good, so thank you. Look, that includes IVF. And this gets personal for me and my family. When my wife and I decided to have children, we spent years going through infertility treatments. And I remember praying every night for a call for good news. The pit in my stomach when the phone rang, and the agony when we heard that the treatments hadn't worked. So it wasn't by chance that when we welcomed our daughter into the world, we named her Hope.
See, that's all really relatable stuff.
Right?
When Vice President and I talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make your own healthcare decisions. And for our children to be free to go to school without worrying they'll be shot dead in their classrooms.
That's a good one.
By the way, as you heard, I was one of the best shots in Congress, but in Minnesota, we believe in the Second Amendment, but we also believe in common sense gun violence laws.
Finally, somebody's saying it, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Vice President Harris' idea of freedom is a ticket for education to be that ticket to the middle class, not crippling debt. Air that's clean, water that's pure, communities that are safe. A place where we settle our political differences not through violence, but with our votes.
Well, it used to be.
And that's what this election's about. What direction will this country go in? He's not going back. Well, Donald Trump would damn sure take us backwards. Let's be clear about that. And don't believe him when he plays dumb. He knows exactly what Project 2025 will do to restrict our freedom. To rig the economy to help the super rich. If Trump gets a chance to return, he's going to pick up exactly where he left off 4 years ago. Only this time, it will be much, much worse. Raising costs on middle-class family. He will repeal the Affordable Care Act, no doubt about it. He'll gut Social Security and Medicare. And when somebody tells you are, they believe him. He said he'd ban abortion across this country, and he'll do it, whether or not Congress is there or not. Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family. He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club up in Mar-a-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends.
Well, I stand around my kitchen because I don't have a table. Can't afford a table.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I mean, that's the American dream, having a kitchen table.
Having a kitchen
to sit
table.
worried at.
I do have a table. It's a pool table, though. So I don't have it. We didn't have the pool table when you were here, did we?
No.
Yeah,
but
okay.
you got a pool in your house?
Mm-hmm. It's a pool table. A table that's a pool. It is blue.
Oh, okay. Nice, nice.
But I got to put it down in the basement. I finally finished cleaning out my fucking basement anyway. I'll talk about that later. He's almost done.
And I got to tell you, his running mate shares his dangerous and backward agenda for this country. J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for the architect of the Project 2025 agenda. Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on! That's
That was the
not
quote I
what
saw
middle
online.
America is. And I gotta tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
Coming here, guys.
That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, see what I did there?
Yep.
Cute. He's getting hammered. JD wins. That's got to be
Yeah, I
hard.
mean, maybe if he was even halfway
I gotta
likable.
tell you,
Yeah, you're right.
pointing out just an observation of mine that I
know what his
that I
wife
made. I
thinks.
just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see. So you know what's out there, so say it with me. We aren't going back. We aren't going back. We are not going back.
Wow.
So we got 91 days. My God, that's easy. We'll sleep when we're dead.
Kind of reminds me of like the old guy that played old Matt Damon at the end of Saving Private Ryan.
Over those next 91 days,
Oh, yeah.
and every day in the White House, I'll have five
Also, I had
President
a
Harris's
I
back.
had a literature professor
Every
who
single
reminds me of my old roommate of.
What's that?
I had a literature professor that he reminds me and my old roommate of because we both took him together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like there's some similarities here.
Ah, interesting. See, there's a lot of
that's also
people
been
who well, he's a teacher, right? So, and
Yeah.
and his wife is too. So there's a lot of people who can relate to him, I think.
Oh yeah, like in the standard, well, at least the old days of like, oh, you want a candidate you can have a beer with or whatever. Like this guy is the poster child of that sentiment.
Right, exactly. Donald Trump is not.
Yeah.
He literally lives in a gold tower, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, he upgraded from the ivory tower.
Ivory tower, yeah. Well, but yeah, but you know what I mean. It's gold plated. Well, at least it was. Did they take it from him? Because he's in Mar-a-Lago most of the time these days. But I mean, I don't know if is he even able to go back to New York?
Not at this point. Well, I mean, I heard the sentencing is still going to be supposed to go through. I think September 18th
Oh,
is what I heard. Because the Supreme Court ruled that it couldn't be delayed by, I think it was like Minneapolis, Michigan. I think was trying to somehow do some argument for why it needed to be delayed, and the Supreme Court, at least in that regard, was able to be like, no, the sentencing is not being delayed. So, we get one win at least.
And we'll have yours. You know how this works. We can't do it alone. We need you, each and every one of you. Go over to KamalaHarris.com, get on board, because we need you. Freedom to make our own choices. This leader, this compassionate, careful, joyous leader, believes in each and every one of you. My God, you came here tonight to sit at the very top because you love this country and you're not going back. She believes in the opportunity for every single person to join the middle class. She believes in the promise of America. We just got to fight. We just got to fight. Because as soon-to-be President Harris says, when we fight, we win! Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Vice President. God bless America.
There you go.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, like, the level of relatable that he is like, it's making me think of the in Fallout 3 for John Henry Eden growing up in rural Kentucky. You know, it's almost like too relatable to be real, but yet apparently is. Like, somehow this guy has just hit all of the stereotypical notes of a person's life to be the perfect relatable, like,
wait a minute,
candidate.
Yeah, John Henry Eden, isn't he like the president, but he turns out to be like a
Yeah, because the whole and his whole backstory is just a, you know, like, statistical analysis of previous presidents or whatever to just be like, yeah, this is what the, you know, the most relatable or whatever success story would be.
silly.
Yeah, so I'm saying it sounds like that level of not real, except that somehow it is.
Somehow it is. Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
Wow, they raised 36 million in 24 hours. Holy shit.
Yeah, last I heard was 10. So, good lord, that's I mean, and that's on top of just like when Kamala joined. So, like, this whole thing about, like, oh yeah, you know, Trump was just saying, like, oh, 2 or 3 days and then it goes back to whatever. He wishes he got that kind of fundraising from J.D. Vance.
Yeah. I know, right?
Yeah, I mean, this, and then yeah, if we do get a debate, which honestly, if the Trump team has even half a brain, they would find any excuse to stop a vice presidential debate. There is, like, no way that they can even, like, conceive
It's all human.
that Vance would come out on top.
Yeah. I know. It's crazy. I don't think I was gonna play this thing. This is funny. I think he'll be. I'm glad she picked him. I mean, it was a little like nail biting there for a minute. Like, oh boy, what's gonna happen now? But I mean, I mean, I can't consider with everything considered, right? I couldn't think of a better ticket.
Oh, for sure. Like, now that I'm, like, learning more about Tim Walz, I'm like, absolutely. Like, when I knew literally nothing, I was like, Harris Walz, like, that doesn't sound like a great ticket name. You know?
Again, you're thinking
like,
optics.
That's what I had.
But you're thinking optics.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking, like, what flows well when you're saying it out of your mouth?
Trump Vance, TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that actually does work out pretty perfect for him, huh?
Because he's a
Yeah.
Considering his level of political analysis, I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of the equation.
God, I know, right?
Because I was on TV, you know. He's such a, I mean, and then apparently, I guess his kids and Elon Musk and somebody else, I don't know, were like talking to him and trying to convince him to get this guy, which doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe you can explain this. Why would Elon Musk be supporting somebody like Donald Trump who is anti-electric car?
Yeah. It does. It honestly just makes no sense. And that's the thing, right? Like where it seemed like Elon Musk was saying something about like giving like $35 million or something to Trump every
Day
month or
or whatever
the number was. It was
then he
gonna be
realized he couldn't
frequent.
fucking do it, so then he backed off of it.
Yeah. Like I almost wonder if it was like the Tesla board of directors or something called up Elon Musk and said like if you do that you're out because that's insane.
Right.
Like you're literally undermining our company.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, I mean for the Twitter part, sure, it's it's great for the what am I trying to say? Views, but the interactions or whatever. I'm sure their numbers are up right now because of Trump, and I'm sure it was up during Trump's presidency by comparison.
Elon is an
since
evil
then.
motherfucker. He's just
yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, he's evil. He has so much money, and he's got no sense of anything, of real family. He's got so many kids from different women all over the world, apparently,
Right?
and
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
he's so obsessed and he's so online brained that he's more concerned about Twitter or X or whatever the fuck than he's concerned about anything else. And the SpaceX stuff, it's like, whatever happened? What about that? You're supposed to be doing all these great and wonderful things for humanity. You supposedly care about this stuff. It's like he used to, he used to come out with little brief interviews and talk about, oh, I'm SpaceX guy, I'm Tesla guy, I'm talking about this stuff. I'm the genius. I'm the Tony Stark of reality, of the real world. And he would only come out briefly and talk about that stuff and come off very, autistic and, look like he'd been worked and he's very tired, because he works all the time and his work ethic. No, it just turns out he's fucking stupid.
Yeah. Elon Musk was great when we didn't know him.
Right. Because he talks very awkwardly and everything else, and it seems like, oh, well, he's just a genius, and that's the way geniuses talk, and he's really busy and he works constantly, and he's taking precious time out of his daily schedule to come and talk to us peons. No, it turns out he's just like every other billionaire, got lucky, fell into the right business, and doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yep.
And that's it,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean he was like barely on the richest person whatever radar back before Tesla just exploded on the stock market.
And not on the
And then
street.
suddenly it was like, oh, now he's the richest person. He can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Right.
And I think that was the problem. Like he was, like when he was still at reasonable levels of super billionaire, if you whatever you want to call that. I think he may have been less crazy than he is now that he's, more securely at the top.
Yeah, he definitely was. He definitely was a little less crazy. But he was less crazy, but he was also less of him in the limelight. And now that he owns Twitter, and you have to remember, like, back in those days, this was before Twitter, some of it, or right when Twitter was coming up, Social media has rotted Elon Musk's brain. No, not really. He's always been just a fucktard, but it's just
Right.
he he just doesn't know how to navigate this. And his biggest thing about like, oh, he had an interview with Jordan Peterson. I don't know how, a couple weeks ago or whatever.
Oh, good Lord. I said, oh, good Lord.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, exactly. Or a conversation or whatever, and talking about how he lost his son. His son died because he's trans.
Right.
So,
Yes, and I'm sure Jordan Peterson, with his psychology background, is going to use that to give some, fucked up, not actually supported by the psychological community answers.
yes. Because, yes, of course. Because he's saying, yeah, because Jordan Peterson is very anti-trans. He thinks that what's going on with the trans stuff is worse than what the Nazis did. Because he lost.
Yeah,
He was on Joe
that's-
Rogan like a week ago. He lost it. He was losing it.
Wow. No,
About
I didn't know he was going that far on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess considering the limelight of the Olympic woman boxer, whatever, and how far that narrative went when it's like, no, she's actually a woman, but
Yeah.
yet, but the narrative like stuck enough to where there are people that you have to actually go like, no, just Google like for 30 seconds, to get out of your little. It's
I
actually
know.
a trans athlete bubble, and
Yeah.
it's just like it's amazing. Like, I mean, like that could be a study in itself of just like how far people have gone to being in like echo chambers of obtaining knowledge beyond just like you just turn your head slightly, you'll see the right answer.
Oh, I know. I'd love to get somebody going. Like I thought this somebody on the left was going to do this, but apparently not. You'd have to find the dumbest person
Right.
to debate with in order to play this off. But of course, I'll just grab some random Republican to probably work, and just say like, oh yeah, but some trans woman or some beat in boxing and beat this other woman. It's like, but she's a woman. Well, yeah, you say they're women, but they're not really women, It's like, no, she's a woman. She's female. She's biologically female. And once you explain that, it's like she has a vagina.
There was a previous World Cup thing.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, but there was like a previously World Cup thing that they ruled for some stupid reason that she had too much testosterone in her body.
That turned
and
out to be fake.
disqualified from her. That was fake. Okay, to be fair, I didn't look too much into that. I was willing to accept like, okay, maybe that's where this stemmed from.
No, it
so if
stemmed
that's
from
fake too. Then okay, fine.
That's fake too.
Then they've got fucking nothing.
What it was that there was a thing called what's it called? I think DSD, different sex development or something like that, where she has slightly different chromosomes or something. I don't even know if that's even true or whatever it is, but she's a little more masculine, but overall female, right?
Yeah, and that's what I would even be saying with this. It's like everybody has some hormone levels,
Right,
Like
'cause it's all a
we have some estrogen.
Yes, of course.
So it would be a little bit of a non-normative, balance.
Right. Yeah, and
that.
nobody is perfectly balanced.
Yeah, and
It's all a spectrum. Mm-hmm. I don't know why people can't grasp this concept. It's really funny to me.
yeah, and yeah, I don't think that is something that should be disqualifying in any way. It's like that is her natural body. Like I
Right.
think taking any kind of supplements that would alter her natural body is what everything up to this point is against doing.
Right.
So it's ridiculous to say, oh well, no, you're don't qualify for any possible reason or something like that. So yeah, but it just everybody just latched onto that concept so much that they were like, see, we finally have the example that we've been waiting for years to see. And because they wanted it so bad, they didn't even take the time to like check that they were right. because yeah, it's not happening. I mean,
Right.
especially at the Olympics. Like the Olympics has like very specific like rules on what they will and won't do. And
Hmm.
I mean, personally, I don't know, I guess, what the best way to go forward with that kind of situation would be on that. Sure. I think ideally there would be some way that everybody would be able to compete. That would be great. But I also know they have a lot of very strict rules to, ensure fairness. So I don't know. I'm not an athlete.
Yeah, but you also, yeah, and and you also have to pass the bar or whatever it is you have to pass. But you have to take this anyway. People who are in the Olympics are genetic freaks anyway,
Yeah, right?
so they're already beyond what the average person is. Hence the point. That's the point
Hmm.
of the whole thing. It's showing the extremes of what the human body can do.
Hmm.
That's all it is. I personally, and the whole thing about like the two issues. First of all, I think the Olympics is a bunch of bullshit because it destroys cities and you know
True. Yeah.
they get go in there and people build up all this infrastructure and they come in here and then they leave and then all of a sudden all this stuff is gets wasted. It doesn't hurt every city, but it can hurt smaller cities.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I've definitely heard that before, and I think that's just it's not. I'm not saying based on that we should cancel the Olympics, but that yes, we do need to have a good hard look at the way we've been handling them up to this point,
mhm.
and say like, okay, you don't need to do that. You like find some more economical way
Mhm.
to make this work.
Right, exactly. And also like they make so much money and none of it goes
Hmm.
to the athletes. They don't see a dime.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I get this gold medal, and now what? How do you
Yeah.
make money
Yeah.
now?
Unless you get like sponsorships or something like that.
Sponsorships. Are you going to be on a box of Wheaties?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. What else are you going to do? You're going to go on TV shows after a while, but that's only going to be 15 minutes of fame, and no one really cares
Yep.
all that long. That much. You could just as easily be the next Hawk Tuah girl. You know.
So true. Yeah. Because yeah, even like Michael Phelps that had like all those medals that he won, it's like he's known because of that like ridiculous level record. But other than him, like who else really is there?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, I can actually, I guess Simone Biles has gotten a lot of attention.
Yeah,
So
yeah, she's gotten a lot of attention,
but
but
okay, still, maybe there's a top five. Okay, but other than that, there are a shit ton of like record-setting people in the Olympics and people that have gotten medals, all gold, bronze, whatever. And best we could probably do is name five.
I couldn't even name one because I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't follow it at all. So it's just not sports in general is just not a part of my world. I
Hmm.
just I don't care, and which brings me to the whole thing with like trans athlete stuff in general. I don't care. I just don't give a shit whether they. I think there should be a conversation, I guess, for the people who care whether trans women should be able to compete with women in sports and trans men should be able to compete with men in sports or whatever, you know.
Hmm. Even though no one's ever usually concerned about that side of it.
No, no one's ever concerned about that side of it. They're always
Yeah.
concerned about the trans women, which is almost kind of condescending in a way.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah. Like it, yeah, it is very much saying, in different, sports that women just are inferior to men across the
Hmm.
board, and there's no way they could compete against a man.
Right.
Yeah, no, I have 100% thought that since like the start of anything, which is why I'm even like, there's a lot of sports that like, okay, maybe boxing, but to be fair, they have weight categories, so
Right.
shouldn't that balance that out?
Right.
But otherwise, maybe there's a few different very physically intensive sports that they could find statistically, looking at the numbers, it doesn't pan out to like mix sexes or
Right.
something. I don't know, but I think there's a shit ton that you could mix and it wouldn't be a problem. And
Yeah.
I don't know why they just don't do that.
Well, that's the conversation that needs to be had. and that you could mix the sexes depending on the teams and so on and so forth. And you have different, if you base it on weights, you know, there are plenty of females that are, you know, that could beat the shit out of some little twink, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, come on.
And I guess like because I have heard that like say the maximum amount that a person can like deadlift, like that record is held by a man, and the number is significantly more than the maximum amount that like a woman has ever been able to deadlift. Like I've heard those kind of comparisons before, and it's like, okay, fine. But what does that mean for terms of like boxing? Do you just have like a super category, or you know, whatever we want to term to say like the maximum amount of weight category, and maybe women don't meet those requirements, not because they haven't, just because we haven't found one yet that does.
Yeah. Right.
You know. But if we ever do find one, then hey, great, there you go. That's the category's been predetermined, and you fit. Congratulations.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's, again, it can be, it's a conversation for the people out there that give a shit about this sort of thing. Should be having, and it's sensationalized, and I'm sure that behind the scenes there's a lot of it is going on, but it's not something that's just gonna, but the media is gonna run with shit, and they're just gonna talk about it, and then you got assholes like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. I'm so disappointed in him. It's you know, it's like watching somebody that's like, hey, here's like this jock dude, you know, just an average guy talking and
Your
shooting
average
the
Joe.
average Joe, literally, and just shooting the shit with people, not even though he's not really. And
Yeah.
he's done all these things, and he's done Taekwondo, and he's done the Fear Factor and all this other crap, you know, and then he has people like I'm seeing. He's got all these different people on his podcasts. He's got right-wing people. He's got left-wing people. He's got scientists. He's had like Neil deGrasse Tyson, and then Richard Dawkins, and then you'd have somebody like, you know, whatever, and then have Jordan Peterson on or whatever. But then you'd have YouTubers on like Kyle Kalinske, David Pakman, whatever, and then they'd Bernie Sanders on, right? And
That is a good mix.
it's like all over the place. And I respect that. It's like I don't agree with every guest that he has on, but that was, oh God, probably 5-7 years ago now. So at that point, I respected him. But now he's just gone so far down the right-wing rabbit hole on a lot of it over this fucking trans sports shit that it's very disappointing to see. And then as a result of this, he starts entertaining other people that agree. Oh, this person agrees. This is the sign of somebody that's just their brain isn't working properly. Oh, this person agrees with me on this thing. What else do they have to say? And then they say this thing. Oh, maybe because they agreed with me on this thing, they're right on this other thing. It's like, no, not necessarily. You know. And so it starts dragging him down this pipeline of right-wing nonsense. And then you have shit like the last couple of videos he's had on with Terrence Howard. Did you hear about that?
Not anything very recently, but I heard about the controversy with was it Empire, and around the time that he was doing that show.
Oh, I don't know what the controversy was.
Oh, the whole like being attacked or whatever, but then like he set up the whole thing himself. Or
no.
That whole yeah, like that was a while ago.
No, this isn't anything to do with that. This is the idea that Terrence Howard has supposedly reinvented physics.
Oh, how great for humanity!
Yeah, he's solved the problem. 1 × 1 = 2.
So you just take that plus sign and, you know, give it that 45-degree turn.
Turn, yeah. No. He's it's fucking hilarious. I mean, I found out about it because even like it's funny because like the political guys that I follow, like they didn't even mention it, but the Y-Files mentioned it, and I think
Okay.
that's where I first heard about it. And AJ mentioned it, and then I saw the thing on Joe Rogan, and then Professor Dave. Have you heard of him?
No.
Professor Dave on YouTube. He's awesome. He debunks a lot. He focuses a lot on a subject that I really don't give a shit about, but he is funny. He focuses a lot on debunking flat earthers. But it's funny. I just don't care about that subject because I think that obviously flat earthers are fucking stupid. So I just don't feel the need to give them the time of day. But he does focus occasionally on creationists and other things like that. But he did the whole this whole debunking on Terrence Howard, and it's hilarious. It's long because he debunks the whole thing, but because
Also for clarity, I think I was confused. It apparently was Jesse Smollett, whatever, that had the issue. They were both on the same show together,
right?
And I think I made that association. But yeah, no, so I was wrong about that being Terrence Howard related.
Terrence Howard, yeah. So Terrence Howard he's he's thinking that it's
he's just crazy, but doesn't have a questionable background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a whole video on him debunking it, but it's great, and it's a lot of fun. And then apparently he submitted his dissertation, or what else? What would you call it?
Sure.
Is that work? Is that what physicists do?
I'm willing to accept that as knowing what you mean. I mean, because I don't know if that is technically the word for it. I mean, I know that's what you would use the term for, like when you're like going for like a doctorate or something. And like,
yeah, essentially, he sent it to Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. To give his opinion on it. And Neil I thought was really considerate in his response. But then he goes on Joe Rogan as, Neil was very condescending and really, awful. In fact, I should probably pull that up as opposed to what I have queued.
Oh yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, because
although
I could see Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of being very like professory in saying, let's go into the detail of why this doesn't work.
Right, exactly.
Rather than just being like, you're an idiot.
Well, Professor Dave goes into full detail with it, but his is Neil's response to it, which is pretty funny.
Name checked by Terrence Howard on his recent appearance on Joe Rogan.
I reached out to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was like, hey man, yeah, I'd love for you to come on my show, do my radio, do my TV thing. Would love that. I was like, yeah, but I've got something I want to introduce to you.
I got name checked because 8 years ago, he sent me a 36-page treatise.
And it was only 36 pages.
So this is Terrence Howard attempting to reinvent mathematics and physics. A little backstory there. I took initial interest in Terrence because my mother said to me, do you know Terrence Howard? I said, yeah, I know. You mean the actor? She said, yeah. Well, I heard him interviewed on NPR. On there, he said that like when he was a kid, he wanted to be like a scientist and study the universe. I said, well, that's cool. Okay, maybe we'll get him on Star Talk. We love talking to celebrities who have a sort of soft geek underbelly. At the time, I didn't quite know how to get in touch with him, but we met at something called the Upfronts, which is where networks present their next season's TV shows.
I saw him at an event Upfront.
And then this came in my inbox. In this particular case, since I basically solicited it from him, I actually spent time reading every line of all 36 pages. And I commented. My comments are in red here. You see that? So I spent a lot of time on it. And I thought, Out of respect for him, what I should do is give him my most informed critical analysis that I can. In my field, we call that a peer review. You come up with an idea, you present it either at a conference or you first write it up and you send it to your colleagues. It is their duty to alert you of things about your ideas that are either misguided or wrong, or there's the calculation that doesn't work out, or the logic doesn't comport. That's their job. Not all ideas will turn out to be correct. Most won't be. But to get to that point, you need to know things like, what has everyone else said about this same subject? Am I repeating someone else's work? Is this a new insight that no one else has had, but has foundations that are authentic or legitimate or objectively true? Am I making a false assumption? Am I making an assumption that someone else has already shown to be false? All of this goes on the frontier of science. Let me make it clear that I'm delighted when I see people with active minds trying to tackle the great unknowns in the universe. It's a beautiful thing that people want to participate on this frontier. What can happen is, if you're a fan of a subject, let's say, a hobbyist, let's call it, it's possible to know enough about that subject to think you're right, but not enough about that subject to know that you're wrong. And so there's this sort of valley in there, a valley of false confidence. This has been studied by others, and it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's the phenomenon where a little bit of knowledge, you over-assess how much of that subject you actually know. And then when you learn even more, you realize, no, I didn't know as much as I thought I did. So then there's a sort of a lull there. And then when you learn even more, you come back up. Ultimately, learning enough to know whether you were right or wrong. To become an expert means you spend all this time. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't just sit in an armchair and say, I'm now an expert. It requires years and years of study, especially looking through journals where new ideas are published and contested. That's what we have learned is the most effective means of establishing that which is objectively true, or determining that which is objectively false. Both of those work hand in hand to move the needle on our understanding of the universe.
There you go.
I'm going to read you just my opening line here. It's titled 1 × 1 = 2. So I lead off by saying, this is an ambitious work that is a clear indication of a restless, active mind. Within these pages, however, there are many assumptions and statements that are underinformed, misinformed, or simply false, thereby compromising or nullifying many of the subsequent conclusions you have drawn. That's exactly what should happen in a peer review out of respect for one another's intellect. It opens with a quote from Terence. It can never occur that the square root of a given number, when added to itself, is greater than the initial number squared, for that would expose a loose thread within the fabric of our understanding, a loose thread capable of unraveling the very ground rules of mathematics. That's a bold statement. So
Yeah, it's a bold statement. I mean, Jesus Christ. This is so stupid. But it sounds like something that could be the opening of some sort of like Deepak Chopra book, you know.
Yeah. And I will also say, where Neil deGrasse Tyson was going into what it means to have peer review and why peer reviews are good and what details are all that. Like that excerpt is like a perfect example for, I think, like college students and stuff to be like, okay, you need to watch this.
Yeah.
So when your professors are telling you like, oh, you need, like 3 sources from like peer-reviewed journals, this is what they mean. And this is what I know you see it as just like a little button that you're clicking to check mark so that you don't get non-peer-reviewed sources, but this is what's actually being filtered.
Right.
So I actually really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see. I mean, I wish I knew. Wish the internet was a little bit more clear with this has been peer reviewed, or you want to look for sources that have been peer reviewed in general.
Yeah, for sure.
But they can't. Can you hold on just 1 second?
Yeah.
I'll be right back. I can
Yeah, I'll
actually.
probably step away for a quick second too.
Okay, if you're gonna step away for a quick second, I'll.
Yeah, I'll just go use the restroom and such.
I'm gonna put the loading screen on, real quick, because I don't have
okay.
monetization or anything. Probably won't on this channel. I'll just.
Yeah, it's all good.
And we're back. Yeah, so here we go.
So then I just say, this opening thesis is false. There are plenty of examples of this that have escaped your attention. His statement is shown to be false for every number that's less than 1 and greater than 0. For example, the square root of 0.64 is 0.8. 0.8 is bigger than 0.64, and it's a larger number than the original. And 0.64 squared equals 0.4096, a smaller number than the original. To the extent that the next 35 pages depends on your stated thesis, this fact undermines your claims and assumptions and conclusions. It's not about feelings here. It's about objective reality. So at the time, I considered Terrence a strong acquaintance. Then we hung out a bit and had much exchange. We haven't spoken much since then. But go to page 2, and in here, he mentions people who he declares were persecuted because their vision exceeded the myopic view of their contemporaries. And he mentions Walter Russell, Nikola Tesla, John Keeley, and many, many more. Regarding your list of people who have made brave sacrifices, I note that to be a genius is to be misunderstood, but to be misunderstood is not to be a genius. The work of Russell, Walter Russell, has eluded any experimental support, and the work of Keeley is generally not reproducible. Science is about reproducibility. I can have the most brilliant, crazy, fun idea ever, and if I perform an experiment and no one else can duplicate that experiment, it belongs in the trash heap. It's me in my own world. thinking I have landed on an objective truth, when in fact I haven't. That's how science works, the reproducibility of results. As for the work of Tesla, much of it had very real value to physics and our understanding of electromagnetism. And that value is duly recognized by my community in the naming of a unit of electromagnetism after him. You can't get more badass than having a unit named after you. Newton has a unit named after him, for example. The metric unit of force is a Newton. Much of the rest of his work was fringe and unrealized, either for violating known laws of physics or for being simply impractical. Just because you do some good stuff doesn't mean everything you ever did is going to be great. I will further affirm that just because an idea sounds crazy doesn't make it wrong. The system of research and publications in peer-reviewed journals has the capacity to spot crazy but true ideas, provided they're supporting by compelling arguments, and ultimately supported by experiments and observations. Newton's laws, Einstein's relativity, quantum physics were all revolutionary ideas that appeared in peer-review settings or journals. Meanwhile, most of the work of Russell and Keeley had no such success with their ideas. So I think on Rogan, Terrence said that I trashed those three researchers.
Attack that I had talked about Walter Russell and Victor Schauberger and John Keeley and Tesla as the people that I looked up to. So he threw shit on he was like, well, Tesla stuff worked, but Tesla was never really respected and out there.
When I'm just
Now you have to remember, like, Joe Rogan doesn't really like Neil deGrasse Tyson that much anymore, because Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of like threw Rogan under the bus by correcting and talking over him when he's had him on. And it's like, Neil deGrasse Tyson has a tendency to ramble and talk over people a little bit, and he is more of a he's not a scientist anymore. He's an educator, about science. But the Joe Rogan show is more about vibes and hanging out than it is about facts. So that's not going to work. That's the reason why he's gravitated towards more right-wing lunatics than anything else. But anyway.
At least stating the fact. I don't think of that as trashing. I think of that as being honest. I mean, I could have softened it, but I don't think that's what people who care about you should do. People who care will be honest with you about ideas, about thoughts. The world is changing so quickly, and so is everything around us. Unfortunately, we have chosen to...
But we're still trying to catch up.
Right.
I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look, dinosaurs and man.
Remain handcuffed to antiquated and obsolete beliefs. We have put an enormous amount of faith into the methods and practices of old that are as dead today as the men who propagated the notion that the world was flat. So I say here, regarding your world was flat reference, it's not widely appreciated that the idea of a flat Earth predates the introduction and development of the methods and tools of science as we practice them today. Those processes date back to around 1600, coincident with the invention of the microscope and telescope. Before then, truths were whatever seemed right to the senses. Afterwards, and to this day, truth was whatever the verified data obtained by your instruments forced you to believe if your senses otherwise contradicted the data. This fact means that there's no such misunderstanding on the scale of the flat Earth in the era of modern science.
And there you go.
Yeah.
I guess the world
and I mean,
is...
I've even heard, like, before that time that there had been calculations.
The Greeks had already figured it out that Earth was round.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think anyone with any serious levels of mathematical knowledge, even back then, would have been able to use, like, geometry, or, trigonometry or whatever, and be like, these things don't add up.
Yeah. Well, and Terrence Howard like shit on him like in Joe Rogan, and it's like, man, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is being really generous here.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, I mean, there is definitely an underlying, like, okay, come on, like, this is kind of funny.
Right. Right, of course.
But on the surface, yes, I do think that this is, like a professor giving you your assignment back and letting you know, okay, this is what you did wrong and why.
Right, exactly.
And this is why you
In
only
multiple
got a 10 on your assignment.
Right.
Places throughout the treatise, he's attaching a number to a physical idea or a physical object. That idea goes way back, by the way. Go back to Pythagoras, famous for the Pythagorean theorem, which we all learned in 8th grade, was it, or 9th grade? Pythagoras was also a philosopher who tried to understand how things worked. He felt, among others in his group, that if you assign a number to something, the number can imbue that object with certain meaning and significance, which means then if you manipulate the numbers, that you gain insight into the objects themselves once you've assigned a number to it. There's a lot of that permeates this document, but it's a long disproven approach to the world. Again, there's nothing wrong with a failed idea. Now other people know to not do it, right? That has value. If we place a candle in front of a mirror, the measurement of light is doubled, is it not? It does not measure as only one light source. We actually see two lights. A light meter will show twice the intensity of light. This is false.
He attacked it so with such vitriol.
Maybe that's too blunt. What else should I say? I'm a scientist. That's what I would tell a colleague. A colleague who then say, would thank you, and then we go out for a beer after, because that's how that works. Mm-hmm. And there's an old saying, I first heard it from Michael Dell of Dell Technologies. If one day you find yourself the smartest person in the room, change rooms. I say this is false. Wow. The light in the mirror appears dimmer than the source of light itself for several reasons, starting with the fact that no mirror is a...
What happens if you're the teacher?
Well, I guess that can be an exception. Like there's an understanding.
Yeah.
You're deliberately trying.
But what if that's your
knowledge.
entire job?
Right.
And you're always in that room.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the thing that that I was actually making this comment the other day in relation to The Boys. The most recent episode, or not episode, season, has had a character that their superpower is they're the smartest person in the world, and I'm like, is that a superpower? Technically, somewhere in this world right now, there is the smartest person. Mm-hmm. So, do we count that? Is that a thing? And and how does that work for them? And I would go with this example too. It's like, okay, they're the smartest person in the room. It's like, well, by definition, as the smartest person in the world, they don't have anywhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, in the spirit of what the saying is, I think that is a pretty good advice.
Time to play video games and eat snack cakes and Doritos.
Yeah.
That's what I would do if I was the smartest person in the world. But they're probably poor. They probably don't have any fucking money.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
But anyway.
100% reflective. But more importantly, the candle in the mirror is always farther away from you than the candle itself. So the light meter will always read less than twice the actual value of the candle itself. I will note that from this work, Terence produces art, sculptural art, which I find to be intriguing, even beautiful. To me, more intriguing than beautiful, because you got to look at it and you keep looking at it, like, what is that? And what's going on there? I just want to read you my ending comments here. I could not follow the reasoning on these last few pages, but the illustrations that derive from them are beautiful, regardless of how they were derived. My notes have been strongly critical of your reasoning and conclusions. I was candid and blunt out of respect for the energy you have clearly invested in this work. But if you're sure that you are still right and that I have completely misunderstood your thesis, then you will need to look for another person to evaluate what you have done and solicit their comments. In any case, like I say above, The images and illustrations in your final pages are beautiful works of art, unlike any I have seen. Best to you, Neil. So, in case people wanted to know what actually went down 8 years ago, just always be cautious of the Dunning-Kruger effect. You put in a little bit of work and you have an idea, and then you think your idea is right and that Einstein is wrong and Newton is wrong and that everybody's wrong and that all of modern astrophysicists are wrong. That's bold. That's bold. Audacious. Bodacious. When continental drift was proposed, it was like, what? Land masses are moving on Earth's surface? That's a weird idea. That's going to be a hard sell. We think there's sort of upswelling of the, yes, locally, but whole continents, that's crazy. It would take a few decades until ultimately, when we're mapping the bottom of the ocean, we find that there's a mid-Atlantic ridge that the ridges are separating. It's like bada bing. So the resistance to jumping on the idea that continents move was not because people were stubborn. It was because people are cautious. Any new idea needs to be put through the ringer. That's how science works. You put it through the ringer, every possible test you can, not just because it happens to look like South America fits with Africa. Any better evidence than that? Oh, wait a minute, fossils matched between the west coast of South America and the east coast of Africa. Not recent fossils, fossils from millions of years ago. That's interesting. Things that make you go, that brought some more people over to the camp. You keep that up, and you reach a point where enough evidence is brought to bear on the question, and then you have a new emergent truth. But at the vibrant energy that goes on at conferences and the contest of ideas, that's how we roll. That's how it works. When Einstein came out with relativity, saying space-time curves, Al, what are you saying? What are you doing? Well, you can test it with a total solar eclipse. So the idea comes out in 1915, is published in 1916, 1919. We measured light around the edge of during a total solar eclipse, because you can't see the stars during the daytime. You see the light rays bent from their actual coordinate positions on the sky. Sir Arthur Eddington, an astrophysicist, provided the first experimental evidence for Einstein's general theory of relativity, which, by the way, was published in a peer-reviewed journal. Crazy idea. The platform to be accepted for the ideas is not social media. It is not Joe Rogan. It is not my podcast. It is research journals where attention can be given on a level that at the end of the day offers no higher respect for your energy and intellect than by declaring that what's in it is either right or wrong or worthy of publication or not. I wanted to post this to my website so you can see my comments mixed in with his treatise, but you got a sense of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Neil deGrasse Tyson here. As always, keep looking up.
Cool.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
since all humans have certain
yeah, it's interesting how he does this. I mean, when he goes on Joe Rogan with Terrence Howard and Professor Dave, Professor Dave is a lot less kind.
Yeah, I could believe it.
And he's just kind of a, I don't know how to really, it's hard to really say. Anyway, at one point, Terrence Howard literally says, the way we get our energy, or the way we get, I don't even know what the fuck it's all incoherent nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. Something about the sun defecates. And yeah, so basically the sun takes a crap, and that's how planets are formed.
I mean, I guess if you consider from the sense of like the Big Bang and star matter and how molecules are being, bashed together and flung apart, and it's like a very like long-term, like thorough explanation that if you boiled it down to like, yeah, there were stars and they took a crap and that's how there's planets. I'm like, yeah, okay. It's an oversimplification, but I suppose it could be technically accurate to say it that way.
I think you just saw a Family Guy skit and
Right.
decided to reinvent physics. Oh, wow. God. Yeah, his debunking of that whole thing is great. But what's interesting is the whole idea of energy. And you also see this with the mysticism stuff. You know, how people will create, you know, like quantum. They'll just start throwing words out. It doesn't mean anything. I was trying to figure out like where it was here. It's a energy. How energy? Oh yeah. There it is. Because people will always the quantum mystic, right?
I hadn't heard the concept of quantum as a system.
You haven't heard you haven't heard of Deepak Chopra?
I mean, the name sounds familiar, but I don't know the ideas behind it.
Oh, it's basically like people who are into like crystal healing and all this shit.
Okay.
Like naturalistic healing. And
I am familiar with the crystal healing idea, sure.
Yeah, it's like what's his face? Uri Geller, that kind of shit.
Yeah, I remember when I was thinking there was some cool stuff there, and now I'm like, I went to college.
Yeah, exactly, so. Right. I just went on YouTube.
Yeah, yours is much cheaper.
Yeah. Whoa.
Legitimate medical treatment in favor of unsubstantiated healers and gurus, and sometimes even get roped into a cult or two. There are many flavors of this fad, and a bit later we will get to the meat of the deception, which invariably involves misuse of the word quantum and deliberate misinterpretation of something called the double slit experiment.
Yeah, people misuse that all the time.
Yeah, I believe it.
But I would like to start somewhere more fundamental. Let's begin with the core confusion that enables the whole show. Much like other scams and pseudoscience, it all stems from a misunderstanding of basic scientific concepts and terminology. In this case, it is the word energy. What is energy? Even just hearing that word out loud, dozens of connotations probably come to mind. Here is the way quantum mystics on the internet use the word incorrectly.
They talk about something called spirit, an energy, and an invisible force that seems to be controlling who and what we really are. Quantum physics emphasizes that the universe is not really split into two realms, a material realm and an energetic realm. Quantum physics reveals that everything is made out of energy. What we perceive as matter is actually an illusion of energy and light, that there is nothing physical.
So as you can see, to the quantum mystic, energy is a synonym for magic.
Right?
Oh, that is a great simplification of all that bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It means whatever they want it to mean in order to sell to the suggestible viewer whatever it is that they're selling. But in science, this word has a very specific definition, which we must learn now. For maximum effect, please purge yourself of every connotation you are aware of for the word energy, as the term has been completely convoluted by society, so we need to start from a blank slate. Act as if you've never heard this word before. Are you ready? Here it comes. Energy is the capacity to do work.
You've probably heard that before, right?
Yeah, in fact, I believe that was essentially the definition that was used in my biology classes.
There you go.
The end. Now, to further clarify, we should also define work. Again, in society, this word means many things. It can refer to a profession, an action, or even a location. So let's again purge ourselves of these connotations so that we can learn what it means in science. Work refers to an action done on an object whereby an applied force causes a displacement of that object. So work is about motion. When you apply a force to an object and it moves, like pushing a box across the floor, you're doing work. So energy is the capacity to do work, which is what causes motion. And that's all there is to it. Energy is a property of a system and nothing more. To elucidate further still, we could highlight different forms of energy. Kinetic energy is the energy an object possesses by virtue of its motion, which can be transferred to other objects through collisions. Potential energy is the energy an object possesses by virtue of its position in a field. Lifting an object into the air increases its gravitational potential energy, which is then converted into kinetic energy as it falls, just the way a compressed spring has a lot of potential energy, which is released as it expands. Thermal energy, or heat, is just a transfer of kinetic energy, and temperature is a measure of the average kinetic energy of the particles in a system. Hotter systems of particles are moving faster on average, colder systems of particles are moving slower on average. Chemical energy is a kind of potential energy which describes the potential of some molecule to undergo a particular chemical reaction, which is simply a rearrangement of atoms. All of the above is explained in far greater detail over in...
Yeah, he's got a whole list of things.
Nice.
That you can look at to get to...
my classical physics playlist, should you wish to learn about these concepts. Finally, matter itself is a form of energy, according to the most famous equation of all time, Einstein's E equals mc squared. E is energy, m is mass, and c is the speed of light, which is a big number, and when squared is an even bigger number. So matter times this big number equals lots of energy. But even this form of energy is not mystical in any way. When matter is converted to energy in a fusion reactor or a nuclear bomb, it is still the same phenomenon we have been describing. It can be defined rigorously and measured quantitatively, so even in this abstract context, it is never ill-defined or vague. So you see, when we say everything is energy, it's actually a true statement because matter is a form of energy. But this does not mean that there is a magical spiritual world. It does not mean you can heal yourself with your mind or any of the other bogus claims we will investigate in a moment. Energy is not an object. It is not a substance. It is not an essence or a life force or a magical realm. It is a property of an object or system that can be transferred into another object or system, typically in the form of work. That's what energy is, and that's the only thing that energy is. Unfortunately, colloquial usage of...
So there you go.
Nice. Yeah.
A lot of stuff like that. Very dry and to the point, you know.
Yeah, and as he's pointing out, like the colloquial use of a lot of scientific terms causes issues when people are trying to, understand science or use science for their own purposes.
Oh, of course. Well, Deepak Chopra, he's like the Mac Daddy of the whole thing, and he just, took it. Richard Dawkins debated him years ago too. It was hilarious.
Oh wow.
But
he
yeah,
vomits esoteric.
If I can find the sun takes a crap thing, it's fucking funny. It's hilarious because he tries to reinvent the entire periodic table of elements. The whole.
Terrence Howard does?
Yeah.
So beyond just 1 × 1 = 1, he's also like all our knowledge of the elements is wrong.
Oh yeah, everything's wrong.
Cool.
The whole thing. He's just completely I don't know exactly where it comes into it, but there it is. Something like that. Something right here.
Hold on. Let's go.
This is what I'm talking about. He can't be bothered to learn literally anything about astronomy. The expansion of the universe has nothing to do with the dynamics of an individual solar system. The sun did not give birth to the Earth, as though our planet emerged from inside of a star.
That's what he thinks, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, why didn't we melt from the heat of the sun? Like, isn't it hot enough to melt even rock on the sun?
Yeah,
So-
well,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. That's just so stupid. It's just funny. Oh, platonic solids. He goes off about platonic solids and the flower of life and whatever the fuck. It's
Coming
like,
off that tree of life. Yeah.
yeah,
You know, the world tree.
yeah. What's that from? Warcraft?
Oh, yeah,
Or just general-
there was a world tree in there. There was a world tree in the, I know, Diablo series as well. There's one of the Final Fantasies had essentially a world tree in it.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I don't know where the original concept of a world tree came from, but I know it has probably some original roots in,
Does the sun
human history.
Yeah.
give birth to these planets?
The same way we defecate
Maybe
and
Yggdrasil.
have gas, like
There we
Jupiter's.
go.
Just knows that churching up the story gives it a Da Vinci Code vibe that ensnares gullible people.
Can you tell me how
Oh, yeah.
a planet is
I'll back that up
formed?
later.
He says silicone instead of silicon because he doesn't know that silicone is a different material. He can't pronounce orthogonal. He's never even heard these words spoken before, and he is doing nothing whatsoever to actually explain anything about what he just showed to Joe. He's practically speaking in tongues, and Joe is lapping it up. And as the cherry on top, he pretends that this brilliance was hidden because the Catholic Church loves the straight lines from the cross. Does he not know how much power this symbol still has over normal people even today who would never fall for any of this bullshit? He just knows that churching up the story gives it a Da Vinci Code vibe that ensnares gullible people.
Can you tell me how a planet is formed under this theory? So you have a sun, and how does the sun give birth to these planets?
The same way we defecate and have gas, like Jupiter's that red spot on Jupiter, that's spinning on it. That's going to become a moon. It may take a billion or 2 billion years. That will ultimately become a moon off of Jupiter. Where is it? Right at the equator. Where do we discharge at? Right at our equator.
Whoa.
90 minutes in, Joe finally asks him to actually explain something, and Terry's response is astounding. Stars crap out planets the way we take a dump on the toilet. Case closed, everyone. Planets are fecal matter. And the red spot on Jupiter will be a planet later. Of course, this is meaningless since it's a storm. It's a cyclone. How does a bunch of wind form a planet exactly? And he's just so objectively wrong about every trivial detail. The red spot is not at the equator. It's 22 degrees below the equator. Humans don't have equators to defecate from, and the human anus is not located on the waist. This is such a stunning
the same
example of
level
the difference
lower.
between real science and insane ramblings. Ask this question of an astrophysicist. You'll get mountains of data, explanations, equations, predictions, confirmations of those predictions through observation. Ask Terry, and what do you get? The sun takes a crap. The end. Who falls for this stuff?
Everything is just one great.
Wow. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's so. Oh, that is so ridiculous.
I know. This is only like a couple weeks ago. Maybe a month ago now, but whatever. Still fun.
Yeah. This is good. This is definitely good.
Yeah.
Yes, this is definitely this is a great example of the difference between science and pseudoscience.
Oh,
Great
I don't
being.
remember how it goes
We're
from
all
here, but
God. That's what Jesus was talking about. That's what Buddha was talking about. It's recognizing the divinity in you.
Actually, neither of those people said anything like that. Buddha didn't proclaim to be divine, and in Christian mythology, Jesus didn't say, I'm God and so are all of you. He just said that he was God. That's kind of why the Romans killed him. Terry is just looking for excuses to call himself God, and he's as dumb with theology as he is with science.
Here I'm an Oscar-nominated actor that is known all around the world, face recognition, vocal recognition, all around the world. I've invented a new form of flight, tangential flight, the ability to fly around your own center of mass, something they've never been able to do. And you don't hear anything about it.
The narcissism is oozing out of every pore of his body and congealing into little origami cranes in front of our eyes. He's world famous, kind of, so his imaginary invention must be brilliant. Tangential flight? Tangent to what? He doesn't know what a tangent is. And of course, his little toddler toy doesn't actually fly or do anything. He just has cute animations.
Instead of all the props having to turn themselves around to stop and turn in the opposite direction,
Like a helicopter.
they just switch the direction. They just so it's a collective pitch and it changes. And so now instead of going up, you're going down, but now 5 of them will come together. So I was trying to reach out to Elon Musk. I was trying to reach out to Jeff Bezos. because my main goal was I was building these to clean up the upper atmosphere, all of that debris that's up there, and ultimately to mine the asteroid belt.
You can immediately see that someone is clicking on a screen to trigger an animation, so it's anyone's guess as to why Elon Musk should care about this crappy video game. Terry is not only smarter than every physicist in history, but he's better at building spacecrafts than everyone alive, despite never having built anything. The hubris is off the charts. It's not worth listening to this entire rant, but he genuinely believes that he has invented revolutionary technology and that he's being ignored for literally no reason.
And so it's just going to react, and immediately it converts into a plasma. And so we can project anything into space. All of that has been accomplished, and it's ignored.
What?
Delusional narcissists always have this precise brand of persecution complex. James
plasma.
Tour, Ben Davidson, they all do the same thing. All the experts are morons because they ignore my super brilliant revolutionary insights. The whole establishment is against me because they're afraid of my truth. Honestly, I think we've had enough. I got 2 hours into the 3-hour podcast, and there's just no point in continuing. It's the epitome of manic hogwash with virtually nothing to even sink your teeth into, and there's only so many times I can point out that what he's saying is meaningless. In the end, there's only one point that needs to be made. Pretentious tools like Terry can hope to fool as many people as they can by speaking confidently and using jargon they hope the listener doesn't understand. But what can they do with it? What can they physically achieve with it? Terry thinks he's reinvented physics, but that's because he never learned any physics in the first place. Take this free body problem, for example. This is something he was supposed to learn in high school. You use Newton's laws, plug in some numbers, and you get an answer that correlates with reality. You can predict what will happen when you let go of the block. And guess what? When you let go of the block, that thing does happen. Terry's gibberish doesn't have that power. His ramblings have no utility, no predictive power, no technological application. It's a parlor trick. It's basically hypnotism. But as I mentioned before, it's not harmless. This way of thinking is dangerous, and these types of people are often dangerous. Do you want some evidence?
Because I was angry. I was really angry. And I was going to use all of the knowledge that I had, and I was going to destroy mankind.
Oh my God! Right out of Marvel.
I was like, I was about.
How does Joe placate people like this?
Well, I mean, I'm sure he's definitely gotten views.
Oh yeah,
but
Well, I'm
then
glad you didn't.
Statements like these are very revealing. It's not a joke. He genuinely believes he has this kind of power. And
There you go.
Yeah. I believe it.
Yeah, it just devolves into obvious nonsense, but it's just like, my God. That's the level of intelligence we're dealing with here. I thought it was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, that is really good.
Yeah, Professor Dave, great YouTube channel. Yes, a lot of debunking of like flat Earth stuff, but he does a lot of actual science stuff as well. The rise of anti-intellectualism. That's a huge fucking problem.
Right?
I can put that over what I said. Let's see if I can skip. Oh, I love this quote.
Relatively short video.
Yeah.
to start, I had
I love this quote by Isaac Asimov.
hoped to work in this quote from Isaac Asimov. There is a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there has always been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread, winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge.
You probably heard that before.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a great quote.
Mm-hmm.
This quote is from 1980, and it's been echoed by other great thinkers like Carl Sagan, who spoke about the public being unable to grasp the technology we all use every day and having no ability to set their own agenda or ask the right questions, culminating in a celebration of ignorance. He said that in 1995. Even these two could not have foreseen how bad this has gotten in the 21st century, with people now questioning the shape of the earth and the validity of basic arithmetic. This anti-science fervor makes us easy to manipulate because any contrarian message is bought en masse, no matter who is telling it or what their motives are. We are witnessing a multimodal anti-science empire operating through mass media and legislation, moving towards state-sanctioned pseudoscience. And we don't have to speculate as to how harmful this can be. We have history to reflect upon. Persecution of scientists under Stalin was widespread. Lysenko was a non-scientist who was promoted to a high scientific position under Stalin's regime, and who convinced Stalin that genetics and relativity were evil. He denied the existence of genes. To address agricultural problems, he promoted a pseudoscientific practice called vernalization, and millions died of starvation as a result of crop failures. Scientists who refused to renounce genetics were left destitute or even executed. Are we at risk of repeating such events? Absolutely. Let's face reality. Trump is going to win the election. Could he...
This was before Kamala.
Yeah, for sure.
This is before Kamala obviously took over.
Bring a Lysenko-like figure into his cabinet and begin persecuting real scientists? Absolutely. Will he try to expand executive power and abuse his position to the point of authoritarianism? Probably. And there are plenty of wealthy people who will help him try to do that. I won't go into detail about Project 2025, but it's not a conspiracy. It's a real plan to move America into the first stages of Christian theocracy, and it's already underway. This is the evil upon our doorstep, and while it should receive far more attention than people like Terrence Howard, we should recognize that it's all different shades of the same phenomenon. Anti-science sentiment does not arise out of thin air. Science is becoming increasingly more complicated and therefore difficult for the public to understand, and some people lash out due to the discomfort this produces. But more importantly, there are vested interests in promoting this mentality stemming from Republican-funded think tanks, the deliberate sculpting of a populace that is not only science illiterate, but actively hostile towards science. Denial of climate change is in the interest of energy producers. Denial of basic evolutionary biology is in the interest of Christian theocrats. These efforts go all the way up the ladder to figures
Didn't
like
one
the
of them
Koch
die?
brothers. I'm not saying Terry's funded by the Koch brothers, but he rides this prevalent attitude of reality denial and hostility toward any form of expertise to this bizarre prominence that now has people questioning second-grade math. To wield an agenda that is in opposition with science, one must popularize the notion that science is wrong and evil. Universities, the places where you gain knowledge, are evil. Don't go there and learn things so that you can figure out how to resist our brainwashing, and also how to organize and topple our political structures. Universities are famously places that stand up against the powers that be, so they must be demonized. It is a successful campaign because many people are happy to have a reason to not learn anything and cling to primitive beliefs without basis or self-scrutiny. It goes without saying that religion is a primary driver of anti-science mentality because scientific progress, particularly as of late, has challenged many religious narratives, such as immaculate divine creation. This triggers fear of mortality as their narrative is eroded, and they lash out in precisely the same way as one would defend themselves against physical violence, with hostility and tribalism. At the same time, this is not purely a religious issue. It has at this point completely permeated secular politics. I myself am not a Democrat, and I no longer vote Democrat out of total disillusionment with the party, as it does not have the best interests of the American people in mind. But the Republican Party is cartoonishly apocalyptic in comparison. Know nothing, proudly stupid, in denial of truly all science, actively pushing us back into the Dark Ages in terms of both ignorance and authoritarian control by the church. In the wake of this, to pretend that idiots like Terry should be given a voice is preposterous. He is not the culprit, but he exacerbates larger trends already in place. He does not deserve a platform. He is not part of any legitimate conversation, and most of the figures with any kind of expertise that shoehorn their way into the conversation have ulterior motives as well, and only serve to further confuse the public, like Eric. So let's get down to brass tacks. What is anti-intellectualism at its core? It boils down to three principles. 1. Religious anti-rationalism, essentially emotions over facts. 2. Populist anti-elitism, or the rejection of intellectual institutions. And 3. Instrumentalism, the belief that pursuit of knowledge only serves practical means, namely profit. This movement intends to halt the acquisition of new knowledge that would undermine groups with power and privilege. Misinformation that benefits those in power is perpetuated, and those who speak truth to that power are preemptively character assassinated. The educational sphere is not completely blameless, admittedly. Part of the disdain towards academia is fostered by the increasingly high cost of education, but this is not in itself a justification for abandoning the sanctity of centers of knowledge. Corporations do not have their financial interests challenged when the public cannot even identify the issues that they are harmed by, thus perpetuating their own subjugation. We can historically blame the fossil fuel industry, the tobacco industry, and so forth, but we do not extend this to scientific knowledge itself. Politicians, corporations, and religious institutions stand to benefit the most from promoting anti-intellectualism. They enact the politicization of nonpartisan issues, polarizing things like climate change so severely that simply acknowledging basic science gets one ostracized. This spills over into the social realm just as easily. Anti-intellectualism breeds nationalism, or the same blind allegiance to a governing body that is actively sowing the seeds of division. This is the reason for equating Black Lives Matter or any other kind of social justice with fascism, and the justification for this always involves inventing violent intent out of thin air. This in turn is used to justify a militarized police force under the guise of protection. And lastly, anti-intellectualism promotes being skeptical towards perceived authority while demanding that people blindly follow demagogues who are amplified by social media. People who fall into this way of thinking will place an unreasonable level of skepticism on the body of knowledge produced by tens of thousands of scientists operating all over the world under every type of government and in both the public and private sector. Yet they place absolutely zero scrutiny on the figures who confidently feed them the narratives they enjoy, which are riddled with distortion and fabrication almost without exception. These people find comfort in the strength and confidence such figures convey in an appeal to shared beliefs. That's why Trump famously stated that he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't lose any voters, because their idolization of him is emotional, not logical. In the end, and here comes Dave the broken record, anti-science mentality and reality denial is the single greatest threat facing mankind. Take a movie like Don't Look Up. Though obviously satirical, the manner in which the
seen that,
general
right?
public in this modern
yeah.
era would react to any existential threat was depicted magnificently. There is no issue that could be more nonpartisan than a comet coming to kill us all. And yet, the comet was hyper-politicized. People were brainwashed into believing the comet didn't exist, and a megalomaniacal tech oligarch fucked us all. In my estimation, that is roughly what would happen if there were another far deadlier pandemic or some other such situation. And the culprit is not the scientific community, it's the pundits and demagogues who abuse the power of the internet to warp public perception of reality. People like Rogan are not the main culprits, but they also are not blameless and deserve their share of criticism for amplifying the chaos for monetary gain. And sadly, other than directly neutralizing sources of disinformation and promoting general science literacy, I don't have a meaningful solution to this doomsday recipe. I don't know how to fundamentally change human nature to be either less corrupt and manipulative or less blindly credulous. I will admit my youthful optimism has been diminished as I enter middle age, but I'm not giving up just yet.
Anyway,
Nice, nice.
great channel. I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I've liked all the stuff that's been shared so far, so I should check out more.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was cool. That was cool to have. I mean, things have changed a little bit. You know, it's amazing how what a difference a day makes, as they say.
Yeah.
And you have now, obviously, even just Kamala Harris, and then all of a sudden you have Tim Walz. My God, it's amazing. Hope is back.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I mean, yeah, it's the reversal that we had from just like a month ago. Like we were just having to resign ourselves to like, yeah, it's gonna be close, but it seems like somehow Trump's gonna win. Whatever. And yeah, now it's like Trump win. I mean, maybe like 3 states. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. That's what it feels like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was even discussion of like Texas could legitimately be in play right now, and I'm like, yeah,
Well,
we were edging
Yeah.
close in previous elections, and
Absolutely.
this is enough to push it into that realm.
Yes.
So that would be nice.
What I'm trying to tell you is things are looking up. The Democratic
But yeah,
Party has
hopefully
been,
not in the sense of when he was saying that line, looking at a screen that clearly was not indicating things were looking up.
right. The Democratic Party has been making some very positive strides. Dismissed. I'm not going to tell you what those positive strides were. Just get out of here.
Yeah, right.
And about your request, no.
But yeah, we're gonna see. I think what September 10th is the first scheduled debate that Trump said he's not going to show up to, but apparently Kamala is going to show up, and I guess they're just going to talk with her for a couple hours. So that sounds like that'll be fun. Check
What
that out.
about I want to see what I really want to see. I mean, obviously, I would like to see Kamala debate Trump, but
Oh, yeah.
Trump's too much of a pussy, so I don't think that's going to happen. So I think, I mean, his requirement was like, oh, you got to do it on Fox News. It's like, wait a minute, she's the vice president. She should decide where the debate
Right.
should be held, right? She's the one in power, not him. Fuck him.
And it has to be in front of a live audience. So it's like you want an audience of Fox News supporters.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be cheered at everything you say, and you want her to be booed at everything she says.
Right.
Like just clarify. It's like, you know what? Let's save the trouble. We'll just get those like laugh tracks and boo tracks, from like sitcoms. We'll just play those.
You want to rig the debate. I don't know. Trump voters are so stupid anyway. I don't even know how they could. I mean, how can you even listen to? You have to be so. Just like, I don't know. I don't even know anybody anymore that's like a Trump supporter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, recently, like for a while, I know one person. I do have to say, I do know one person that is a Trump supporter, but I haven't talked to them in a while. And, you know, I don't know why or whatever. Maybe they've changed their mind, but they were like really into it. Like to the point where they had like they had like a whole display case in their part of their house to Trump.
Shrine, if you will.
A shrine.
A shrine,
A shrine.
if you will.
Yeah, exactly. A shrine, if you will. But to be fair,
yeah.
this is the kind of person that anything they like, they put a shrine to. So they have like things to like anything from Batman to, you know, whatever has a thing. You know, this is what I like. It's like it's like the tattoo mentality. I like this thing, so I'm gonna fucking ink it on my arm. You know.
Right.
How do I know I'm going to like this in 6 months? You know? Maybe I decided, like, imagine me, it's like, it would be like me getting a Star Wars tattoo when I was in my teens, you know? And then...
Yeah.
And then suddenly come to realize, like, wait a minute, Star Wars is actually kind of crap. In comparison. Like, the original trilogy is great, you know, don't get me wrong. But, like, everything that's come since then, it's like, okay, there really wasn't much there. That's the problem with Star Wars, is there really was never much there. And they've had to create things that weren't there.
Yeah, which is fine to expand the universe, but I think that as they're creating new stuff, they're also having to, you know, do, like, the fan service stuff that keeps people happy as well, and I don't think those things are mixing well.
No, not mixing well, and it's not like Star Trek, because Star Trek didn't worry about that shit. It just did its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Only downside to that is that, yeah, there's some canon conflicts, but hey, you know what? Look at Star Trek versus Star Wars.
Yeah.
And as far as, like, sci-fi shows in general... Love Next Gen, love Voyager, love all the Star Trek stuff. But I gotta say, I really, really like Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's some of the top tier fucking sci-fi shit I've ever seen. Ever.
Mm-hmm.
And especially that right in the beginning, the first couple of seasons, but especially that one episode, I want to say it was like the first one or the second one, where they were just... They had to stay up constantly. Nobody could get any fucking sleep, and they had to jump like every 30 minutes.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, because it was a very specific time interval, and they were just always being attacked right at that point.
Right.
And it wasn't something like it was just like one of the ships got destroyed, and then the problem stopped, and they were just like, oh well, all right, guess that might have been, maybe that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but
yeah, I remember it being something like that where they didn't ever get a definitive answer for why it was happening the way it was.
Right.
Just that something changed on that last time the jump, and like I said, I think it was like one ship or a handful of ships or something like that got destroyed, and then it was like, oh, we're good now for some reason.
But just that tension of the crew, like not getting sleep and fighting that, and it felt very naval. Air Force, you know, it was a great, had the military aspect to it and the sci-fi aspect. It was great. It was just brilliant.
Yeah, and yeah, I loved the whole like President Rosalind and her whole like having to understand that they are in a like military police like fighting for the survival of humanity situation,
right?
But balancing that between like politics and, you know, like leading as normal versus, you know, having to share like leadership responsibilities with Odama, you know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that was all great.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Love the show. Got involved with the characters. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I watched the first couple seasons when they were brand new, and then when I finally went back to watch the show again, it was, I think, already fully done by that point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, greatly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, as far as new Star Trek stuff, I haven't finished Discovery yet. I haven't gotten into that, but I do enjoy the Strange New Worlds so far. I've enjoyed the first 2 seasons, so I am looking.
And all of Lower Decks would be definitely recommended.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about Lower Decks, but yeah, definitely want to watch
So
that.
good.
I just don't really. I just kind of like write off cartoon stuff. It's not really real to me. So I just kind of like, that's more of the kids, and like I just don't think about it, even though it's not. It's more of like a Family Guy, you know.
Yeah, Prodigy is admittedly more for kids.
That's more for kids, but
it gives you some sequel, you know, further stuff for like the Voyager crew and everything. So I like it for that. But yeah, Lower Decks for sure is like a animation comedy, you know, in the vein of like Family Guy or all those that for some reason don't know why Family Guy was the first one that popped in my head, and then apparently the only freaking one.
Oh,
but
I said it. That's why you know.
Oh, is that what you said? Okay,
Yeah.
because my brain is already kind of like, ugh,
Yeah.
at this point. All right, well there we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely that kind of thing, but very Star Trek oriented. So they do constantly like so many references, just like left and right, and yeah, it's just and it even creates its own new stuff too, which I appreciate that as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's cool. I'll have to check it out at some point. I haven't really had much time lately. This week's been fucking shot. Next week's gonna be shot as well. I'm doing the whole teaching thing this week, and I gotta teach tomorrow, and Saturday's a whole day. That's a full day of teaching, and plus I have all these gigs, and it's just like you know, it's still it's as many hours as a full-time job. It's just not, you know, in the same day. It's just not, you know, divided up at 8 hours a day. It's like I work every single day of the week. I just work like 6 hours here, and then 7 hours here, and then I'll work 12 hours here, and you know.
Yeah. It's just spread out.
It's just spread out, yeah.
Clusters.
So.
Yeah, this week and next week are going to be really busy for me, and then I'm assuming things will be smoother once our school semester starts.
Why would things be busy if the semester hasn't started?
Because it's all preparation for the semester starting.
Gotcha. So you go into work though, right?
Oh yeah. Still physically going in every day. But yeah, there's a lot of like preparation stuff that we're having to do for when the semester begins. But then when the semester does start, there's usually not a whole lot of traffic right at the beginning. So we usually get like a good, like, if there's anything we still need to get wrapped up in preparation for the start, you know, we get some opportunity for that. But otherwise, we're talking about, I don't know, 3 weeks of much more kind of downtime before things like really pick up.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it gives a little bit of a chance to kind of ease into like a routine for all that.
Well, that'd be cool. I mean, yeah, because I don't know what's going on. Who knows what's going to happen? Look at the next couple of days. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. But assuming the next thing, whenever the next debate is or big thing, yeah, it'd be cool. Like if you can do stuff like this in the evening during the week.
Yeah, sometimes. Because I did mention I'm also going. Like it's not 100% everything yet, but I'm very high likelihood of starting my master's program here this fall.
Okay.
So that'll also be juggling doing work and like doing course assignments. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to use some downtime, like when I'm not busy with work, to kind of catch up a little bit. But for the most part, You know, and I have heard from people, it's like you would think that going from like a bachelor's degree into a higher degree like master's or doctorate would involve like more work, but I'm hearing from so many people that it's like, no, it's way easier.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, and I think the way easier part is a combination of a full-time student at the master's and doctorate level is taking less classes than a bachelor's. So that's already kind of like a start there. Like I'm only expected to take 2 classes a semester rather than 4 or 5. But then in those classes, they are also kind of understandably designed around professionals that are going back for a higher degree. So they're usually much more flexible about like deadlines and requirements and things like that. And then lastly, because you're typically a professional going back for furthering education, like when you were a bachelor student and they're like, hey, you know, you got to write like a 4-page paper. When you hadn't really done that up to that point, you're like, oh my God, 4 pages? How am I ever going to get there? You know, and then when you are, you know, at master level and they're like, oh yeah, hey, we need you to throw together like a 10-page paper. You're just like, oh yeah, I just had to do like a 15-page report, you know, for my job and have that done by the end of the week. So,
Yeah.
and you're giving me like half a semester to do a 10-page paper. Yeah, no problem. All right. Yeah, cool. I got that. What's that?
What type of font and what size?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. And well, I mean, yeah, of course, there's a standardized 12-point
What
Times
is
New
the
Roman.
standard anyway?
Yeah,
12?
yeah, 12-point Times New Roman.
Okay.
Yeah, there's well, there's multiple styles to be fair, but the main ones are MLA, which is the Modern Language Association. They are the primary people that decide style requirements for like English papers and literature-based things. Then there is the other big one is APA style, which is the American Psychological Association. They are pretty much the deciders for style on any kind of paper that is scientific in nature. And then the other, like one of, I'd say the big 3 is Chicago style, where I don't know what the roots of that one is exactly, but it's typically used for history papers.
I was just curious, like, so how many paragraphs, and you're gonna have a double space in between paragraphs?
Yeah, yeah, still, everything's double spaced, 12-point Times New Roman.
Oh, it's double spaced.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh well, that's fine then. So 15 pages, so 10 pages is really 5.
Yes, if you're looking at it from that perspective, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, we'll even have people at the, you know, undergrad level that have to do like 2 pages of 12-point Times New Roman double spaced, you know, everything, and they're, you know, they're going like, oh my God, it's like the end of the world, and you're like, okay, by the time you even describe what it is you're talking about, you're done, and then you're going to be like, I need more space. How am I supposed to say it? Like, just write. You're going to get there. Trust me.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Especially, yeah, double space. Oh, at 12. Oh my God. Yeah, it's like it's like a page. That's nothing.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what happens if you go beyond that?
Oh, well, most professors are usually fine with you going over the limit. It's usually just a minimum. So they'll say like, oh, give me minimum 2 pages on the subject or whatever. Some do impose a maximum. Like they'll say like, okay, between 2 to 4 pages.
Yeah.
You know, most people just interpret that to mean 2 because they don't, who wants to go to 4?
Yeah. Unless you feel it, you know, you're on a roll.
Like I mean, I've gotten to the point in writing now that I am at what I was describing at the beginning. I'm like, if I'm told to write something in 2 pages, I'm at the point like how, like you know, it's like there's so much probably to say on the topic, any topic whatsoever, to just be able to introduce it, make a point, you know, use something to back up that point, you know. But by the time you do all that, you're at 2 pages, and you absolutely need more.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now I'm kind of like thankful anytime they're like, you know, do something like 4 pages. Like, okay, I can actually have an opinion, you know,
right? Yeah,
in 4 pages.
Definitely.
something like that. But yeah, and that's what I was gonna say in like the MLA, kind of styling. In fact, most of the styles, the very top of your paper is also spaced out further by like like required information for like say MLA style. You have to put your name, you then usually put your professor's name, then you put like what class you're associated with, then you put the date, and then you put like a title of your paper, and then now finally at like 6 lines down, you start your paper. So you're already losing
Oh
like
my
a
God.
third of the page or something
Yeah.
to just doing that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Oh, geez. Yeah, that's nothing. That's nothing, man.
Right? So yeah, it's really not for the shorter papers, it's really not that bad at all. But I'll admit, the first time I did I had to do like a minimum 10-page paper, I was a little concerned, like how am I going to get there? But yeah, once I was working on it, I was like, oh yeah, no, this isn't that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just it's like and my professor I had, like, she was great. She was just like, okay, so can you write a 2-page or 3-page paper? And I was like, oh yeah, sure, I can knock those out. And she's like, okay, so just imagine that you're talking about a topic, and you want to write on 3 subtopics of that, and for those, make a 2 to 3-page paper per subtopic. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess that is legit, like all it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then you just staple those together. Boom, you got a 10-page paper.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it's even easier than what they were there, because you still get an intro and conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just that.
Yeah. Cool.
And similarly for any length paper, just write even more.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So yeah, long story short, I'm going to be busy doing some classes, doing a degree in higher education administration.
Okay.
So, which goes along with, what my work currently is. And it is one of the degree plans that can be entirely online. So that's nice.
Nice. Well, that'd be cool. I mean, the main thing I want to do is like the debates and, of course, the election.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Election night, my intention is to be just like watching that like the whole time.
We should be on together. We should be streaming that shit.
Totally.
Remember.
Get some snacks, hang out.
The 5th of November.
We can, see the election results coming in, and if things start going poorly, we can start doing the math on like, okay, no, there's still a path.
Mm-hmm.
If it works, we could get like Nevada somehow.
I'll get some sound.
And
I'll
then
get some
Alaska.
sound. I'll get some soundboards queued up, so if the red starts taking over, I can play like the red alert sound thing.
Oh my God!
Red light. Oh God.
Yeah, hopefully we won't have to go through 2016 again.
Right, hopefully not.
That was a
I don't
nightmare.
think so. Like I said, remember the 5th of November.
Yeah, and also the various colleges and whatever in this area, they do voting booths just like right there. So I know for my purposes, like actually going to vote is going to be incredibly easy, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So, but yes, with all of that said, I should be getting to bed because I do have to do my work schedule tomorrow. A classic kind of 8 to 5 that our society has decided is the standard.
Right.
Not 9 to 5 anymore, because somebody realized, like, hey, we're paying these people to go to lunch. What's up with that?
Why can't I remember it today? Oh yeah, that's what it is. Remember the 5th of November. Gunpowder treason and plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
I'm not familiar with that.
You're not familiar with that?
I remember the first part, remember 5th of November thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've ever heard anybody do the full version.
Yeah, that's
So
just
that's
like the
with
chant.
that said, I probably just didn't know.
Yeah, that's what it means, because you know what it references, right?
Off the top of my head, no.
Guy Fawkes Day, which is when the Christians versus the Protestants in 1605 or something, early like 17th century, where Guy Fawkes was going to destroy, blow up the Parliament.
Oh.
And he was caught in the basement with all of the gunpowder, and he had the frickin' he was caught because he was just down there, and then guards just randomly walked in, and they were like, "Hey, what are you doing here?"
Right.
And he had the lighters and the igniters or whatever it was that he would use to ignite the gunpowder, the wicks or the whatever they used back then. I don't really know,
Sure.
Whatever. Anyway, he had him in his pocket. He had him on him while he's standing around. And so they arrested him because he was good. All the gunpowder was all placed, was all set up, ready to go. Like the movie V for Vendetta. Like that's based on a real event that almost happened.
Oh, okay. I actually saw what's in that one. Where my mind was going was the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie.
Oh no, that was way after.
Yeah, time-wise, yeah, and all that. But I'm just saying that like they use the same idea that it's like a bomb under Parliament that they catch the guy, as they're trying to set it off.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. When Sherlock Holmes was in like the 1880s.
Yeah, for sure.
With Conan Doyle, but this was
But I don't think that plot from that movie was actually from any of the books.
No, it was not.
They just kind of
they just made it up for the movie.
Yeah.
It was like it kind of felt like the steampunk version of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. It was still a fun movie.
I still enjoyed it. Yeah, I still prefer Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes, even in the old version of it.
Yeah. As a hindsight with where everything landed and everything, yeah, I would definitely still say Sherlock Holmes was really good. But I will give a lot of credit to Elementary though. They did a good job with that, more so than I would have expected.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I still don't know. I like Cumberbatch.
Oh, I mean, yeah, for sure. Like Elementary was still very much like we're taking the spirit of Sherlock Holmes and turning it into, like a police procedural or whatever.
Yeah.
And whereas Sherlock was actually like, we're gonna, other than it being in modern times and doing a few twists on the classic stories, we're still telling the classic stories,
right?
As they were.
Exactly. Okay, but even when they did the Bride, the Indomitable Bride, him back in time.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Guy Fawkes got arrested, and they were going to hang him, obviously, for treason, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he tripped and fell and broke his neck.
Huh.
And didn't get a chance. They couldn't hang him. He was dead. He died. So, like, reading history is hilarious.
Yeah, that is interesting. I had not heard all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Like, history can be fun. And
Yeah.
for some reason, it's taught with just, like, the most stereotypically, like, boring, monotone, way of doing it from so many people. Like, I've talked to a lot of people, and they're like, yeah, I just couldn't stand it. I need to like get out of there or something.
Everybody says that. I love history, and it's like, but you can read into it, and like you can hear it, and like hearing a story like that. If you had heard it and were like, oh, and then he, But how can you tell the story of Guy Fawkes going up to get hanged, and then he trips and falls and breaks his neck? How can you tell that in a non-comedic way?
Yeah,
It's hilarious. So it makes history even more fun. I don't know. Maybe I would make a good history teacher, but
yeah, because I mean, I will say in my personal experience, I had both. Where my history one teacher was very much the I'm just going to stand here and I'm going to lecture at you, and he still did that with adding emphasis to things that made a little bit of a give and take flow to the material. But for the most part, it was I when I begin here's the lecture for you. The lecture is now concluded. Walking away now. But my second guy that did the second half of history, he was very much a storyteller. Like he enjoyed, like as he was describing something, he would like set a scene and be like, picture that you're there in this circumstance, and this is how this is all coming together.
yeah.
And it was great. I absolutely, which admittedly what he was doing, like the biggest memory I have of him doing that is describing the World War One, like war in the trenches. And he was like, like if you were a soldier in these trenches and you've been in these trenches for months and no ground has been won, for either side, and there's been like designated forget what they're called, but essentially death zones that like if you no man's land, yeah, if you go in there, like the machine guns that are set up, like you'll be torn apart. There's just no option for you there.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to really do because you can't make any progress because you're just stuck in trenches the whole way.
Right.
And you're running out of food, and then like you've been wearing the same boots for months, and
Ugh.
when you pull off a boot, your foot comes with it, and you're just like, well,
Oh my
shit.
God.
But you can't even feel it because it's been so long that
Yeah.
you didn't even realize your foot had rotted away inside your boot. Yeah, and it was like describing all that, and it's like, oh shit, okay, that does sound like World War One sucked.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, that really happened, huh?
Yeah, yeah, that's how he was describing it.
God damn.
That yeah, that like that was what was so awful was like just that neither side, because the way like things were set up, like neither side could ever make any progress most of the time.
Yeah.
And then when they did, it was like minuscule levels.
Yeah. My God.
And I think his whole thing was like primarily because of the addition of using machine guns on the
Right.
battlefield,
Jesus.
because like that changed the game.
Yeah. Man. Ugh. Yeah, it really brings the devastation home. It's good to like bring the impact of war to the younger generation. It really needs to be driven home. So we don't end up there again. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's so easy that when you have, I was gonna say you've never experienced war, like we've ever experienced war, but I mean like when you have never even, I guess, fully thought about what war means, and you have like like another nation is like making you a little angry, and how quickly it is for you to be like, yeah, we should fight them, let's go to war, we'll kick their asses, and it's like, no, let's maybe just fucking not.
Yeah. Let's start with showing children Saving Private Ryan.
Right? Like I wouldn't say maybe that's required viewing, but still, I definitely think that should be, high school, definitely college, level of like, yeah. In fact,
high
history,
school,
college,
yeah.
college history,
College history.
Blah. Yes, absolutely. Be like, we're gonna cover World War II, click.
Mm-hmm. There you go, and then show Schindler's List right after that, and it's like, you should. Well, it's high school. I think high school is good enough. I mean, the movies are so high school, like senior year.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, so Schindler's List, I think you could more get away at high school. Well, shit, it's been a while since I saw Schindler's List. Now that I'm remembering some stuff, I'm like, I could see some parents having some issues.
Yeah, but if you're
for that
senior,
one.
if it's 17, if our rating is 17,
Yeah, but I mean, I'm this extreme example, but the people in Florida that were, objecting over the frickin', Disney movie. I mean, we're at that level right now.
what Disney?
It is just because it has a gay character in it.
Oh, the cartoon?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Or
but that's what
Indiana
I'm saying,
Jones.
like,
Indiana Jones because he says, I hate Nazis.
I haven't heard for that, but yeah, and I forget what the Disney cartoon was, but it was like something about like being an explorer or some shit, and it was like a parent trying to get along with their child. I honestly don't remember whether it was father
I
and son,
remember something
whatever.
about it.
But yeah, the child is gay, and so and that comes out pretty clearly. It's not like just a one quick and you're done kind of thing. It's like
Yeah.
it's actually like a plot point of their miscommunication with each other.
Gotcha. Well, there's this. Oh. Yeah, but that's fine if you're like. I understand the concern to a certain degree if you're like 5 or 10 or whatever, you're in elementary school or whatever the case may be, as far as the school showing something specific, movies in general. But there's the reason why we have the MPAA. We have ratings, and if as long as it falls within that category, it's fine. I think as long as it's G rated beyond 13, then you're fine. As far as the school system being able to show it, I don't know what the Disney movie was rated, but if it was PG, then you can't show.
I'm sure it was PG at worst.
Well, then if
I don't
over
even
anybody
remember,
over
but-
13, then you shouldn't really have much of a problem with it. I mean, at that point, you're over 13 years old, if you haven't heard about the concept of gay and straight and all that stuff, I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
And as far as like Saving Private Ryan goes, I mean, you get to that point, that's R-rated for violence, and as it should be. And then you get to the Schindler's List, and it's the same age group and all of that. So,
yeah. But yeah, I'm just like, I'm mentally remembering both movies, and I'm like, if I had to pick which one is the least graphic of the two, I honestly don't know where I would be at. Like my initial instinct was to say Schindler's List, but then the more I'm remembering that movie, the more I'm like, no, I don't know.
yeah,
They're
Schindler's
both
List
pretty
Schindler's
crazy.
List is the least graphic. That's easy.
I suppose, yeah.
To me that's easy because the sequences where you see dead bodies and everything else is compartmentalized into sequences throughout the movie, and it's not throughout the whole movie. A lot of it is Liam Neeson talking to Ben Kingsley, and yeah, there's moments and stuff, but a lot of it's cinematic. And it's not direct graphic violence in your face, where Saving Private Ryan is.
True.
And
it's in color.
That's a huge difference.
That's going to make it a bit more real.
Yeah. And you got the whole to me, just the D-Day sequence right there is far more harsh than anything else. But then you have the rest of the movie. I mean, it's insane. But yeah, great. Both are brilliant World War II movies by Steven Spielberg. I couldn't recommend higher for someone who wants to know about the history of it, just like trying to experience what it might have been like. Not that I know personally, but World War II vets have watched these movies and like, yeah, that's the closest you're gonna get. So I think it's important to get people to watch these things and to understand that. Anybody that's like gung-ho military, I want to join, let's like watch these movies first to get a grasp on it. And then you might change your mind And a lot of people do. They see it and they go, oh, it's not the fucking video games, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's just it's so easy to like see it in that lens. When all the media that you've experienced up to this point has been, so much more trying to think of what the word
glorified.
for that would be. Yeah, but then I was also thinking, like, in the sense of, like, like a action movie when a person gets shot and they're just like, and they fall over. It's not the same as, like, seeing somebody's arm get blown off.
Right, it's not, yeah. Yeah, the action movie stuff. Yeah, this Private Ryan does a much more realistic job of showing carnage. Which is important, I think, for people to see that, so they get they get shocked a little bit when they get older, to be able to see that and go, yeah. When you're 17, I saw it when I was 16, I think, 15 or 6, whenever it came out. I think I was 15. So it was a little young.
I thought we went to the theaters to see it.
We did, yeah. Yeah, I mean, at that age, I was a little young, but not, you were younger than me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was just thinking. It's like a good bit younger.
Yeah. Kind of fucks with your head a little bit, but it still was a good movie. It still,
Yeah.
But it makes you, like, sit and realize, like, oh, shit, yeah. Like, okay, it's fine. That was history and whatever, and anything that comes out. And I see it in video games and movies after that. This is a video game. This is reality, and as a result, I'm very, very anti-war.
Yeah, exactly. It is, like I said, it's amazing how many people are, all gung-ho for it, and yet, and it's like the people that are the most gung-ho for it are the people that are, not going to be involved, in it if we actually were to go.
Right. Of course not.
It's like how convenient for them.
Yeah, exactly. Unless they're fracking Cylons. Anyway, I know you got to get to bed.
Yeah. I gotta do my full shift tomorrow, and then a little bit shorter on Friday. So that'll be good.
Cool. Yeah, I gotta work tomorrow as well, and I got a gig Friday, and then I'm working all day Saturday. And I got my live stream on my other channel after that, and then I got a gig Sunday, and then I think I don't have anything going on Monday. Maybe. I'll see what happens. I do a DJ thing, potentially help out, but I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. Depends on how I feel that day.
Sure.
Cool. All right. Well, until the next something happens, or whenever you want to get together again.
Yeah.
Let me know, and then Sunday's probably not going to work for me this week because I won't be back home until like 10:30. So.
Yeah, and then I would say same for me with the transition from this week to next week. Like as it's been, like today was a bit of an exception. I actually had a bit more energy today, but yeah, the other days I've been getting home and just like, almost immediately passing out.
Yeah.
And then trying to deal with that. So yeah, I'm expecting pretty much this weekend is just going to be like vegging out.
Yeah.
And recharging the batteries, as it were.
Cool. All right. Sounds good. All right.
Yep.
Have a good week. Have a good night, and I will see you later.
Talk to you later.
Later. Bye. All right. Oh, maybe I'll play a little bit of a game here, but I'm going to go back to the loading screen for a minute, and I'll be back. Oh, you hear that? Oh, loading. Wing Commander 3, by the way. I think I'm going to change my mind. I am just going to sign off for tonight. And no one's going to see this anyway, but if anybody does, vote blue, blah, blah, blah. Try to make the world a better place. Leave it better than when you found it. All the platitudes, whatever. Signing off.